Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey, everyone. It's been quite a day for people on the Twitters. And if you're not on the Twitters, don't worry about it. We're going to catch you up. If you think I might be fiery because I'm wearing my communist red lipstick, yeah. It's been one of those kind of days. You know, it's been one of those kind of days where things become clear. Where we have moments of clarity, moments of zen about the world in which we are existing in. And some might say that some of the developments today, you know, some could view them badly, but I actually really don't. I think the developments of today have been awesome, and we're going to explain that. But why are you guys talking about Kate Middleton in my chat? Listen, Kate Middleton had abdominal surgery. This has been planned. I don't know why people are freaking out about Kate Middleton. As you guys know, I'm a royal nerd in real life. I follow all of the royals. I don't just follow the royals of the United Kingdom. I follow the royals of the Scandinavian countries too. The Denmark royals, the Netherlands royals, the Swedish royals, the what is the one that I'm missing? Norway. The king of Norway is in the hospital, by the way. I've even been dabbling in Japanese royals lately. But Kate Middleton had surgery a while back, and apparently, no one really knows what this surgery is, but they did announce from the very beginning that Kate Middleton was going to be out of commission until, after Easter or something like that. So who knows what they said it was abdominal surgery, but who knows what actually takes that long to recover from. It's not like she needed plastic surgery, so I can't imagine that she got people on Twitter were saying she got a butt lift. And I was like, Kate Middleton doesn't need a butt lift. What are you talking about? But all the royals are sick, apparently. Yeah, I mean, I bet it had something to do with she got a hysterectomy or something like that. I bet it's like that. She has 3 kids. She had problems with the pregnancies. I bet it's like that. Anyway, on to more important things. Human centipede, which I just realized it's human centipede and not human centipede, like yesterday. You, my friend, you are a troublemaker, and I love it. Don't think I wasn't alerted to the nonsense that you pulled today. We're going to talk about that. And yes, I have indeed been making friends with the communists. For every conservative influencer who pretends to be an expert in the left, apparently I make more friends with communists, which is actually fine with me because like if I make friends with the communists, maybe I can actually go to their events without having to like dye my hair and get a disguise and all this stuff. Joshua was just yelling at me the other day. He was like, "Carlin, thank God your hair went back to its normal color after that conference." I was beside myself. And don't ever dye your hair again. And I said, "But Joshua, I have to go undercover again eventually." And he said, "Don't do it out of a box. Go to a hair salon. Your hair is too beautiful to continue to fuck it up for socialists." We'll see. We'll see. I got to make myself look different somehow. But I am making friends with the communists, and we are going to talk about that. There is a lot to cover today. So, guys, welcome to the cult. This is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m., where we do deep dives into the far left, and I show you things that no one else on the internet is showing you. And because of that, because 6 days a week we do deep dives into the far left, my audience knows more about what is going on the woke left than anyone else's audience on the internet. And yeah, that includes James Lindsay's audience by a long shot. Oh my God. The last week and a couple days of finding out how little James Lindsay and his audience understand have been mind-boggling. But it's also brought a form of clarity. And we're going to talk about that clarity today. Well, I don't know why this isn't possible. Prediction: Carlin's next internet boyfriend will be a Communist Party member. I mean, Sophie's already my internet girlfriend. I mean, Sophie didn't agree to be my internet girlfriend or anything, but we've been talking about Sophie as my internet girlfriend for months, and Sophie hasn't blocked me on anything. And we all think that Sophie secretly really does like me, but she can't admit it because she can't be seen to be in solidarity with me. But she likes me. It's true. Sophie likes girls. So all lesbians love me. I'm pretty sure Sophie's bisexual or pansexual. So Sophie wouldn't be bisexual. She would be pansexual because Sophie is a they, them. So we have to be. Anyway, maybe my next internet boyfriend. I feel like I'm developing a really good relationship with Joseph, the guy who runs the Revolutionary Communist podcast. He and I are getting along. We're talking. He hasn't blocked me on Twitter yet. He's not bad looking for a communist. I mean, if we're being honest about it, like Joseph is not like the worst looking communist that I've ever seen in my life. We'll see. We'll see. No, be nice to Joseph. We're trying to get Joseph to connect me with the people who run Marxist school. Be nice to him, bot. Be nice to him. This is a time to kiss Joseph's ass. This is a time to tell Joseph that we hate the conservative influencers more than he does, and that we're all really friends. So if you don't know who Joseph is, we're going to tell you who Joseph is. Anyway, let's just dig into it. So we're going to pick up today where we left off yesterday. And where we left off yesterday was we were about to watch a 50-minute presentation from that new radical revolutionary communist party. And we're going to watch a presentation from Marxist school, which is what I want to go to. I wanted to go to it all last year. I just didn't think that I could because I did that socialism stuff last year and I didn't want to get beat up or anything. But now apparently I have a contact to get me into Marxist school. But we're going to watch their presentation from their Marxist school in December called What is Communism and Why We Need Marxist Theory. We might watch some other stuff too, depending on how much we get through. But we were supposed to watch this yesterday and we ran out of time and we didn't. So we're coming back and we're finishing up yesterday's episode. And if we have time, then we will watch something else. But there's other things I want to talk about first. Because as I said, it has been, well, an eventful day over on the Twitters. And I've come to some conclusions because it's been such an eventful day over on the Twitters. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is this. Oh, God. Rottweiler. Lindsay, yes, Rottweiler, this is exactly what I'm about to talk about. You could not have timed this super chat any better, Rottweiler. Lindsay released Queering American Youth, No Capitalism. Instead, he went with Sexualizing Kids, Gnostics, Western Society. Oh, and he's simped for Billboard Chris now. We need urgent debunking. Well, I kind of heard that this was more of like an advertisement for this book. And by the way, James Lindsay wrote this book with a guy who I tried to show clips of Real Socialists to. I tried with Logan Lansing to say, bro, you've got it wrong. Here are clips from Real Socialists, like explaining what they believe. And he refused to look at the clips. And then he blocked me on Twitter. So I'm going to be really honest. I don't trust the judgment and certainly not the advice of any so-called left-wing expert, far-left expert, socialism expert, queer theory expert, whatever you want to call him. I don't trust the advice or the guidance of anyone who can't look at real clips of real activists, the ones pushing this ideology in the real world, and assimilate those clips into their knowledge base purely from an intellectual integrity perspective. So I don't think Logan Lansing knows what he's talking about when it comes to queering the American child, but he wrote it with James Lindsay, who also doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to queering the American child. And now James Lindsay has done an advertisement on his YouTube channel. But something funny happened in this. And I swear, I didn't set this up. This happened completely organically. Like, I had no idea this was happening until it was already in progress. We're going to talk about that, Naruto. Sit tight. We're going to talk about that. That's another thing I want to talk about. So apparently, when James Lindsay put up this podcast earlier, all about queering the American child or whatever, an advertisement for this book, several of you trolled his chat without me asking you to. And someone notified me as it was happening, and it was Tayton, and it was Jane, and it was Human Centipede. And what I loved about this, what I loved so much, I know you can't really see this screenshot, but like what I'll read it to you. Hang on. Can I make this bigger? There we go. It's a little bigger anyway. What I loved about this so much was that you guys didn't go into his chat and ask him like shitty questions. You weren't shit posting. You weren't doing like anything really disruptive. But you were making it very, very, very clear that James Lindsay is not being honest when he refuses to say the word capitalism. You made it very clear that James Lindsay is not properly defining terms, and you were perfectly polite and perfectly respectful about your criticisms of this in a way that just flowed with the conversation. You, to steal a term from James Lindsay, threw sand in their gears without being assholes. And that's really important to me, guys, because if we're going to be, and I think that this is going to continue. I basically decided at this point that this is our war. We can fight with the communists and the socialists, and God knows we're going to do that. But you know who the real war is with right now? It's with these shill conservative influencers who are lying to their audience for money. That's who the real war is with. I've had this epiphany over the last couple of days. Listen, socialists, when you watch them, are extraordinarily clear. about what their goals are. And their goal is to abolish capitalism. And if people have questions about that, I literally put a post up last night on the Actively Unwoke Substack that you can find at Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, in which I lay out all of the ways that the main topics that we cover relate back to capitalism. We talked about how race and whiteness relates back to capitalism. We talked about how abolish the police relates back to capitalism. We talked about how gender relates back to capitalism. We talked about attacks on the nuclear family relating back to capitalism. Every single thing that the left is doing, which comes from the radical revolutionary socialists, is an attack on capitalism, which they define explicitly as private property ownership. And we are the only people talking about this, and we are the only people being honest about this. The left is extremely clear about this. There is no question of what they're doing. I got into a whole back and forth with the new Revolutionary Communist Party earlier today that I'll show you, in which they flat out said, yeah, we want to abolish capitalism, and that means all private property. And here, what's that mean? And you guys are stupid because you don't understand this. The communists earlier today were literally telling us, you morons are stupid because you're not listening to us when we say we want to abolish capitalism and private property. And I was like, bro, we're listening to you. We know you want to abolish capitalism and private property. It's the conservatives who aren't fucking getting it. It's the people on the political right that aren't getting it. We are extremely clear. You are extremely clear. The problem in this scenario is not us, because we do deep dives into the far left 6 days a week. It's not us. The problem isn't even the socialists. It's not the communists. They're being extremely clear in their language. They're not mincing words once you understand what the language means. The problem is that the conservative influencers are lying to their audience for money and clout, and that is what is causing all of this confusion. And James Lindsay, so far as I'm concerned, is at the head of the pack, because I can excuse some conservative influencers. I really can, because they're not that smart. I can excuse some of them for being dumb. I can excuse some of them for being low IQ. I can't excuse James Lindsay. James Lindsay has read more than enough leftist philosophy that he should damn well know. There is no excuse for James Lindsay not knowing. None at all. So the only explanation that I have is that James Lindsay is lying to his audience in order to profit off of conservatives in general. He's lying to his audience for money. He refuses to say the word capitalism. He refuses to define these terms explicitly, even though when you listen to the left, the definitions of the terms are very, very, very clear. He refuses to tell people where the attacks on the nuclear family are coming from. He refuses to explain to people where the attacks on parental rights are coming from and why they're not going to stop anytime soon. James Lindsay's actions, this is goddamn irresponsible. James Lindsay's actions are going to result in people's kids getting taken away from them. I don't feel as though I'm just being bitchy. James Lindsay not being honest with his audience and not teaching them the most important things they need to know are going to result in some members of his audience getting their children taken away from them because he refused to teach them what they needed to know. And plus, it's just annoying. It's annoying when you have mountains of evidence. When I know that James Lindsay has spent the better part of the last 15 years reading leftist philosophy, and you're going to tell me he hasn't figured out that their goal is to abolish capitalism, which is private property ownership, and how that relates to every single thing they talk about? I figured this out in less than 3 years. I figured this out in 2 years. It took, and I knew something was up about a year in. I knew it wasn't about skin color a year in. I knew it was about owning the power structure. I just hadn't walked it all the way back yet. So how did it take me less than 2 years of doing deep dives into this stuff to figure out what was really going on? And James Lindsay, who's been doing this stuff forever, still isn't talking about what's really going on. So this is our war now. This is our war. It's not with the left, because we're not going to stop them. We can't stop them. We cannot stop them until people understand the language. People ask me all the time, what can we do, Carlin? What can we do? What can we do? What people need to do is learn the language. That's what you need to do. Learning the language, learning what they're really doing, learning the root cause of all of this. That is what inoculates you to them. When you learn the language, all of a sudden, you start seeing how all this stuff shows up in the real world. It's like before you learn the language, you're wearing blinders to a lot of things because you don't know what you don't know. And I'm sorry. Yeah, I saw some of James Lindsay's chat today. They have no idea. They have no idea. And that is distressing because they all think they do. And the reason they think they do is that James has lied to them. This is not their fault. It is not the fault of James Lindsay's audience that James has lied to them. He has not equipped them to deal with this problem. I'm sorry. The only way to effectively deal with this problem is to learn their language, become fluent in their language, know how to identify it when it shows up in the real world. That's what needs to be done. And because conservative influencers are blocking me left and right because they're pussies, the facts don't care about your feelings conservatives are such pussies that cannot deal with real world information at all in any way. I need your guys' help to be able to do this. Now, I resisted this for a long time. It's not really something I ever wanted to do because I don't take Twitter seriously, or X. I'm still going to call it Twitter. I don't take it seriously. I never have. But the fact of the matter is every conservative influencer takes Twitter way too seriously. Every leftist influencer does as well. All media take Twitter too seriously. And we know that if we go into their replies and we reply guy the shit out of them, then that's going to reach James's audience. And that will hopefully drive people to come over here and learn the truth from us. So this is already building up organically because I know my audience is getting sick of this shit. We're going to create a reply guy army on Twitter. And if you don't have a Twitter account, create a goddamn Twitter account. No excuses. If you got blocked on Twitter by these people, create another account. Create a sock account. Create an anonymous account. Create as many accounts as you have to. We are going to make people ask questions. We are going to use any way we can to get in front of these people to teach them the language. If the conservative influencers refuse to do it because they have their heads up their ass, fine. We'll do it. Fine. And I don't give a flying fuck how James Lindsay feels about this. I don't give a flying fuck how Logan Lansing feels about this. I don't give a flying fuck how any of them feel about this. They had their chance to educate their audience. I was off in my little silo with you guys for years, learning this stuff, doing deep dives that they refused to do. And now their audience is woefully uneducated as to what is actually going on. And now that's starting to create a problem. Liquid Marble's asking, what's a sock account? Don't worry about that right now, Liquid Marble. I'm going to be putting something together to explain all of this. I'm going to put it on the Substack. But we're going to create a private DM group on Twitter where we're going to be sharing these things, where we're going to be like helping find stuff to reply to. We're going to be using the community I have on Twitter to do this. We're going to be coordinating amongst ourselves. We're going to celebrate our victories. We are going to pressure these assholes into telling their audience the truth once and for all. And if they want to make us the enemy because we're trying to get them to tell their audience the truth, then they're welcome to do that, and they will expose themselves in the process. I have had it with these people. I have had it. Because this isn't the only thing that happened today. Do you know what else happened in this podcast? Do you know what else happened? Well, apparently, by the way, we already kind of talked about this. Apparently, the word capitalism was not mentioned in that entire podcast about queering the American child. How is it possible, James? How is it possible that you can get through an entire podcast about queering the American child and you don't mention capitalism? How is that possible? Capitalism is at the core of this. Queer theory, queer Marxism is all about destabilizing normativity. Normativity means capitalism. What they are specifically destabilizing is they want to abolish the gender binary and destabilize the nuclear family. And both of those things are attacks on capitalism. And we know this. There was no capitalism. No. How do you talk about queer without talking about abolishing the gender binary? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. How on earth does James Lindsay and Logan Lansing talk about queer anything without talking about the abolition of the gender binary? Guys, just Google beyond the binary. Google beyond the binary, abolish the gender binary, see how many search results come up. That's what the goal of queer theory is. Abolish the gender binary. That is what non-binary means. It literally means no binary. But no, they can't say that at all, and I'm sure they didn't mention the nuclear family either. Even though there's mountains of socialists out there talking about queering the nuclear family as a way to abolish capitalism. And James Lindsay especially has been screaming about parental rights. Well, James, where do you think those attacks on parental rights come from, and why do you think that's related to this? It's infuriating, guys. It's infuriating. It is unbelievable that not only do they refuse to tell their audience the truth, but they block any one of us that try to go into their replies to say, why aren't you talking about this? They are literally incapable of having a conversation with us, even though we watch more of the far left than anyone else on the internet. Why is that? Why is that? Is it just because Carlin has a tone? Is that it? Is my tone more important than people losing their kids? Is my tone more important than 40% of kids identifying as gender queer, gender fluid, gender non-binary in schools? My tone is the most important thing, you assholes? Okay. But do you know what else is infuriating? Apparently, and we're not going to listen to this, but apparently I am told that stepmom Deb Philman, who is James Lindsay's now favorite person next to Billboard Chris, of course. Stepmom Deb Philman, who also doesn't know anything. We've debunked Deb twice on this channel in recent weeks. Stepmom Deb Philman is apparently James Lindsay's go-to resource. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Now, I think that, and this is from my private group chat on the Twitters. I think this was actually the best summation when James Lindsay apparently said, that character, Deb Philman. Well, that's one way to say unhinged cunt. who doesn't know anything. Oh, yes, because Deb said nice things about his book, which she probably hasn't read. Deb probably hasn't read the book. But Deb is up James's ass because Deb is desperate to be an influencer on the internet, always has been for years and years and years and years and years. We know because we've already debunked Deb that Deb doesn't have a fucking clue about any of this, but James Lindsay thinks Deb is just the bee's knees. He thinks she's just great. Exactly the person that's going to save us all. But that's not all. That's not all. Check this out. So I was minding my own business when this woman, Keela, and I don't know who this is. I wasn't following them or anything. I've never even heard of them. She responded to Jesse Kelly. Now, does anyone here like Jesse Kelly? Funny story about Jesse Kelly. Jesse Kelly, for like the briefest moments, followed me on Twitter, and I never interacted with him. Never. I've never said a bad word to this guy. He followed me on Twitter. I think I quote tweeted something of his and I said something that was like complimentary or whatever, but that was like the extent of it. He followed me on Twitter and I never interacted with him, never did anything. Except one day I DM'd him the autistic sex education stuff. And I said, and this was way back, this was like last year. He had just followed me on Twitter. I was like, I don't like to bother like the influencers if I don't have to, but if I have a news story I think is relevant, I'll send them a DM. And I sent Jesse Kelly a DM saying, "Hi, like something to the effect of, I don't remember exactly what it was. Jesse, this story might be to your interest." It was the autistic sex education story. We've talked about the autistic sex education story a million times. If Jesse Kelly really hates communists, as Jesse Kelly claims to do to sell books, then one would have thought he might be interested in a story about how the far left is using schools to push sex education on autistic kids that is not so much sex education as it is tutelage in how to fuck and how to be non-binary. And if you don't believe that, you can find the entire autistic sex ed video on my channel. It's on the homepage. So I sent that Twitter thread to Jesse Kelly. He never did anything with it, but he unfollowed me from one single DM where I said, "Here's a story you might be interested in." He unfollowed me for that. And I was like, well, that's disappointing, but fine. I unfollowed him. I just never interacted with him again. Because if you're going to unfollow a person over something like that, I'm like, bro, you and I are not on the same side. And that was a long ass time ago. That was probably a year ago. Hang on. So never really interacted with him again because he's not someone that I care to interact with, because if he's not going to share that, fuck him. But I didn't block him or anything because like whatever. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, someone said something about Jesse Kelly to me. Like someone asked, here's what happened. Someone asked me, do you guys know how on that stream the other day, people were asking me like, does this influencer know about the left? Does this influencer know about the left? And basically all of them, I was like, nope. None of them know about it. Well, someone asked me on Twitter, they said, does Jesse Kelly know about the left? Like, really? And I said, no, I don't think he does know about the far left. And that was all I said. Well, I didn't really go back and look because I don't really care. But I found it to be funny that when Keela tagged me in this today, she was responding to Jesse Kelly saying something about institutional power. And she said, Carlin should be on your show. She's been talking about the institutional power takeover for years. She knows the real far left. And I saw this and I was like, who am I blocked by now? This is how I found out Jesse Kelly blocked me for saying that I know more about the far left than he does. That was it. Guys, you know someone is definitely an expert in communism when they block someone for saying they know more than they do. Jesse Kelly apparently can't defend his ideas. Jesse Kelly apparently can't defend his knowledge. Jesse Kelly is so intimidated by a woman who says she knows more about the far left than he does that his solution is to block me and just pretend that doesn't exist. Now, let me tell you how that's fucked up. I would be thrilled if I could find people that know more about the far left than I do. That's the God's honest truth. I've had people come into my Twitter feed. I've had people come into my Twitter feed saying, "Carlin, I know more than you do." And you know what? You know what I do when that happens? First of all, I go, "Oh yeah." I go and I look at their page, and 99% of the time they don't know more than me. Okay. Most of the time they're lying, not because it's really their own fault, but because their influencers have lied to them, and so they think they know about the left when they don't. Yada yada yada. But if I ever found someone who said to me, "Carlin, I think I know more about the left than you do," and they had some basis for it, I would be fucking thrilled. I'm not joking. It is a bizarre thing to me that I am in this place where, because I have watched so much far leftist training over the past 3 years, it is bizarre to me that I know more about this stuff than pretty much anyone else. I never anticipated this. This was never what I was striving for. It just happened. And I would love, and I mean love, to have conversations with people who know as much as me. This is why I love my community so much, because there are some of you that have watched almost every single thing with me. There are some of you that know just as much as I do. And that enables us to have conversations. That enables us to talk about these ideas. That enables us to actually create strategies that might actually have a shot of maybe not winning, because I don't think we have the numbers to win, but like at least like causing some trouble, beautiful trouble as it were. I would be thrilled to death if I could find people that know more about the far left than I do. If Jesse Kelly actually knew more about the far left than I did, that would be awesome. But Jesse Kelly doesn't feel that way. James Lindsay doesn't feel that way. Logan Lansing doesn't feel that way. Konstantin Kisin doesn't feel that way. Dave Rubin doesn't feel that way. Carrie Lake doesn't feel that way. Carrie Lake blocked me on Twitter when I didn't even interact with her. I truly have no idea what happened. No clue. I am blocked by so many conservative influencers, most of whom I didn't even interact with. And you know what's even more fucked up than that? It's not even just me who's getting blocked. Keela Law, after she posted about me in Jesse Kelly's feed, she was a fan of Jesse Kelly. She was trying to do the right thing. She was trying to do what many people do on the internet, which is say, "You should really talk to Carlin. She knows her stuff." Jesse Kelly blocked her for recommending me as a guest. I don't know this person. I've never spoken to this person. This person has an anonymous account that doesn't even have a photo. I wasn't even following this person. I have no idea who they are. Jesse Kelly blocked her for recommending that he look into having me as a guest on his show. That's how fucked up this is. That's what cowards these people are. It is mind-boggling. Oh, him? Sorry, him. Okay, so sorry, him. But I kind of like, did I pull this up? No, that's something else. I kind of like this to a certain extent because they reveal themselves. Listen, my number one goal is to talk about the left. My number one goal is to expose the left. My number one goal is to teach people about the left, specifically the language of the left, so that they know when it shows up in their real life. My work has led to parents pulling their kids out of school to homeschool them. My work has very literally led to parents being able to save their kids from gender ideology. I know this. My work has created a community of people that are actually like really invested in what the left is doing and understanding what the left is doing. This is an army of people that can be utilized to teach other people, to create a grassroots thing that anyone can utilize. It doesn't have to just be me. And conservative influencers are so intimidated by it that they're blocking people for recommending that they talk to me. Really, really, really think about that. Really think about how effed up this is. I strongly doubt that's ever going to happen. Cassandra wants me to go on the IRL show because I'm actually like friends with her and she does all of Tim's booking for the IRL show. I'm apprehensive about it for reasons, but I don't know. Maybe. It all depends, I guess. But my point is this, guys. None of these people are coming to save you. James Lindsay's not going to save you. Deb Philman sure as shit not going to save you. Logan Lansing doesn't even know what he's fucking talking about. Jesse Kelly is intimidated by women who know more than him. But you guys really think that Jesse Kelly's going to beat the communists when he can't have a conversation with an uppity woman? Really? Really? No one's coming to save you. And so we've been kind of like dicking around. But I think it's time for like the reply guy army thing to actually happen. And I'm going to be putting stuff in place to talk about the reply guy stuff to make sure we're pushing messages out there. And I'm going to need your guys' help with this. And people need to participate. I will teach you how to do it. I will teach you how to be a pain in the ass on the internet. It is an art form that I've mastered, but it is very, very, very clear to me that if we, and I really do mean we, this can't just be me, guys. This has to be everyone. If we start proactively pushing this message into their feed, not only are we going to reach more people in their feed, but we're going to pressure them into telling the fucking truth for once. I think that we can peer pressure James Lindsay into actually talking about what queer theory actually is, actually saying the word capitalism, but it's got to be an army of people every single time. Replies, replies, replies. This is all these people care about. That's it, is what goes on Twitter. So I'm reticent to play this game because I personally think it's ridiculous that we have to. But if this is the game these people want to play, we will take a page from Nick Fuentes' playbook because this is what the Groypers do. And whether you like him or whether you don't, and whether you agree with him or whether you don't, and I disagree with a lot of his ideas, but Nick Fuentes has pushed the conversation with these tactics. Nick Fuentes has pushed Charlie Kirk and Turning Point onto the messaging strategy that he wants them to have, maybe not all the way, but has definitely pushed them. If it can work for him, it can work for us. And all we need to do is be pains in the ass on Twitter, and that's going to help us work out our feelings about what shills and disappointments all of these people are. So more information is going to be coming about that soon. One more thing, though. Well, all of the conservative influencers are blocking me on Twitter for knowing more than them. The communists fucking love me. So I woke up this morning and I was being posted about by Spectre of Communism podcast. What is the Spectre of Communism podcast, you ask? It is the official podcast of this new Revolutionary Communists of America thing. This is their official podcast. And apparently, they were tweeting about the right-wing fascists that follow them, and I was on the list, and I was very excited about this. I was like, oh my God, I am being highlighted by the communists as being a right-wing fascist. It's like getting an Academy Award. This is what this is. And this started a whole big back and forth in which the communists were talking to us. And the communists were all confused. The communists thought they were being slick. And they were like, this bitch is elevating our messaging. We better keep engaging with her on Twitter. And I was like, honey, you can keep saying whatever you want to me, and I will broadcast that out to the world. I will share your message with my audience. The communists are interacting with me while the conservative influencers are sticking their head in the sand. Yep. Oh, this is what I was going to highlight earlier. Jesse Kelly has now blocked Naruto. Well, you did call him a beta male. And I'm going to get to the other super chats in a second, guys, I promise. But, like, I had a whole back and forth with the communists this morning. We're not going to go through all of it. But you know what was great is the communists were very clear that they want to abolish capitalism, which they define as private property ownership. They were crystal clear about that. The communists were also crystal clear that they think that they think that fascism is created by capitalism. And so I was like, okay, so you're saying that fascism is capitalism? You're saying those are the same things? Yup, they confirmed that. They got into a whole argument with Phil about, like, what were they arguing with Phil about? Phil also got into an argument with them about the definition of capitalism, and the communists for Phil were literally like, you moron, capitalism is private property. And we were like, we know, communists. We know. It's not us that needs to be told. It's all of them. We just need you to say it so that we can screenshot you saying it so that we can show all of them. And this went on for hours. I was talking to these people. Hours. See, capitalism causes fascism, according to communists. And you know what was really great? Hang on, that's just me bitching and complaining. Let's see. And see, you can see this just kept going and going and going and going and going. But I want to get up to where the good part gets started. Hang on. I tweet a lot. Oh, yeah. Oh, James Lindsay is basically sharing graphics that describe my 4 goals of the woke left, by the way. Like, gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. This is my 4 goals of the woke left in a different format. Isn't that funny? Where did it start to get good, though? Hang on. So the official podcast account was retweeting me for a while, and then then I met Joseph. Now, Joseph is my new internet boyfriend in training. Joseph is probably gay, but that's okay. That's never stopped me before. Not a bad looking bloke. Not the worst looking communist I've ever seen. Joseph is the person who runs the podcast for the communists. And so so Joseph started talking to me from his personal account. I was like, this is pretty great. And he kept posting my stuff. And I said, Joseph, we're going to be best friends, Joseph. It's going to be awesome. And then I said, Joseph, what I'd really like is to come to Marxist school. Can you hook me up with the organizers of Marxist school? And then I said, I'm serious, Joseph. Can you hook me up with the, like, so Joseph says, when I said I wanted to go to Marxist school, Joseph said, be our guest. Our ideas are not hard to find. I mean, you seem like a bit of an oddball with a following of reactionary cranks, but having noted that, I'll leave the decision up to the event organizers. And I was like, Joseph, hook me up. So I'm working very hard on convincing the communists to let me come to Marxist school to cover it. Wouldn't that be great? And isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that the communists are more open to being friendly with me than the conservative influencers who could really, quite frankly, learn a lot from me, but refuse to for reasons beyond my understanding? Oh, wait, no, it's money. It's money, honey. It's money and clout and money and clout and branding. Branding. It's image dolling. It's brand. It's all about the brand. We don't care about the truth. We don't care about solving problems. It is all about the brand. So we have communist friends now, but conservatives hate us. That's cool, bro. That's cool. Whatever. All right, before we get into the show, I do have a couple more things I want to talk about. Number one, and we're going to do those super chats in a second. If you are not yet subscribed to my Substack, this is apparently the only place on the internet where you're going to get told the truth about what the radical revolutionary left is doing. This is my content hub on the internet. This is where I break down all of my best content to teach you what's really going on. I teach the woke ideology in plain English. Unlike James Lindsay, I don't need to write a 20-page paper to define the term queer. I can define the term queer in like a sentence, which is an ideology meant to destabilize normativity. So that's what I teach on this Substack. I cover news and stories no one else on the internet is. If you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, please consider signing up for $8 a month or $80 a year. That does help support the work I'm doing so that I don't have to suck the cocks of any of these shill fucking conservative influencers in order to be able to do what I want to do. I am only beholden to you. My only job is to tell you the truth and to show you receipts, and you're not getting this stuff anywhere else on the internet. And I think that is now crystal clear. Yup, they still can't define it in their chat, but you guys can. You guys know more than the conservative influencers. Another way you can support my work is by heading over to the Unwoke Art Store. And we're winding down on February, guys. We've only got a couple more hours of February. And what that means is the 4 goals of the Woke Left shirt are going to be going up to the normal price. Right now, you can get them for 25% off. You can also get it on bags, pint glasses, whatever. We've got a great bag here from our friend Judy. Oh, God, hang on. I didn't mean to go off into the microphone. I'm sorry. Hang on. God damn it. Allergies are kicking my ass. Ah. That's not a good sales pitch, is it? Hacking up a lung into the goddamn microphone. Sorry, I didn't mean to. The cough just came out. It just came out. I'm so sorry. I feel bad now. I'm sorry. Anyway, you can get the 4 goals of the woke. See, Reagan has allergies too. Okay, whatever. You can get that design for 25% off for a couple more hours. You can also get the February limited edition Unwoke Wiki Plague Doctor shirt for a couple more hours. That is going away tomorrow. We're doing a new Plague Doctor tomorrow. So count down on that. And of course, every purchase in the Unwoke Art Store does go to fund the work I'm doing. And I really do appreciate it. Don't die on me, Beth. Don't die on me. All right, let's take some of these super chats that have come in. Let's see. Peyton says, Washington State's largest labor union endorses uncommitted over Biden because of Gaza. Okay, well, that's interesting. Washington, of course, is uber socialist, so that's not a surprise there. You know, at first, I thought they were ignorant. Now I am suspecting something more sinister going on. Listen, man, I started seeing this in 2021. I started seeing it when they all started smearing me on the internet for no good reason. And then it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I tried to tell people, and people thought I was just being selfish or people thought I was making stuff up. And I was like, no, bro, this is actually effed up. But now you guys are seeing it too. And I'm sorry. I really am. I know what it's like to look up to these people and then just to have them be so disappointing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry they lied to you. I'm sorry they let you down. But that doesn't mean we can just give up and go home. If they refuse to do it, we'll fucking do it for them. This is in regards to James Lindsay, I think. It's backfiring on him. Just look at how he already lost a huge chunk of his UK white Christian nationalist audience after calling them out. Yeah, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny that James Lindsay will spend all day arguing with the white Christian nationalists, but he blocks the people who are tracking what's going on the far left in America? All right, James. All right. And then Beth says, you should make a shirt similar to that with your woke goal. What do you mean? What's my woke goal, Beth? I'm not sure I understand that. Let me know. You don't have to send in a super chat to let me know. Just let me know what you're talking about. I wish I understood that, but I don't. Anyway, that's all the super chats for right now. So let's get into business. An hour into the stream. We are watching some communists today. Who wants to watch some communists? Who wants to watch the stuff that Jesse Kelly will never bother watching, even though he claims to be a communism expert? Who wants to watch the stuff that James Lindsay will not show his audience, but that they're all reading about? Isn't it funny that on Monday, when this new revolutionary communist party launched, all the conservative influencers are reading about the danger of communism, reading about the danger of this party. None of them will actually show you what they're talking about, but I will. Because for some reason, I think you guys are smart enough to be able to handle this information. We'll see. I don't have 4 goals to counter the woke left. I don't have that. So I don't know what she's talking about. I don't have that. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I do not have 4 goals to defeat the left. I have my 4 goals of the woke left, but that's the t-shirt that Bot made. So I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. Maybe we can talk about it another time. Anyway, does Malice still follow me? Well, yeah, he does, but I don't know. I messaged him after I went undercover at the socialism conference. Michael Malice was actually the only person that I actually really wanted to talk to after I went undercover at the socialism conference. And so I messaged him and I said, would you like to talk about this? Because I think we could have an interesting conversation. He never responded. So I just kind of gave up. I was like, I'm not going to bother him. I like Michael Malice. I think Michael Malice is very smart. I wish Michael Malice wanted to talk about socialism with me. That'd be pretty great, but I'm not going to bother him about it. If he follows me, if he wants to talk to me, he can DM me. That's how I feel about it. Anyway, let's get this party started. Please make sure you mount the like button for me. Mounting the like button lets YouTube know to actually recommend my content for once. Let's see what the communists have to say.
Comrades, this weekend, this Marxist school is not an academic event. This is an event for training, the practical training for an urgent task that we have as communist revolutionaries. Because in this country, a communist movement is being born. It's trying to be born.
You don't say.
We can see it everywhere. And for each of us in this room, there are thousands of others who feel the way that we feel. Sometimes I think we go through life and we don't realize how many people around us every day also hate capitalism. They want to bring an end to this system. And you don't realize it because we don't always walk around.
Hate capitalism, you say? I thought they hated white men and Western values and Christians, but hate capitalism, you say? Oh, tell me more.
With a hammer and sickle on our shirts. Maybe we should so we can find each other more easily. You don't realize that when you're crossing the street, the person coming this way is also a communist. And the letter carrier that drops off your mail is also a communist. And so is the crossing guard at the intersection at the school on your block. And the construction worker on the job site that you just walked past, also a communist. And so are some of the office workers in the company that's managing that job site. And some of the workers who are picking up garbage on your street Monday morning before the sun comes up are also communists. And if anyone here thinks I'm exaggerating, I was just talking about my branch. Those are the comrades I see every Sunday.
So did you guys just hear that? And look at this is their Marxist school again. This is like a full class of people that are sitting around all weekend learning about Marxism. Did you guys just hear that? All these people that you interact with every single day are communists, but they don't advertise it and they don't say it. But then they go to these communist meetings on the weekend. Why are they blurred? Probably there were people in the audience who didn't want their identities on camera. Yeah, there are a lot of white people there, aren't there? So, when I've been undercover at these events, what they do is they say, if you don't want to show up on camera, just tell them and they'll make sure you're not on anything. And they put like a special marker on your badge or something. So I'm assuming that's what happened here. Or it was just like people that like requested not to be on camera. Let's listen to what he just said though. And then I want you guys to think about how many people are involved in this ideology that you might run into in your daily lives. Because remember, this organization is literally across the country. They have 30 organizing centers across the country, over 30 centers. They're not just in blue cities. They're not just in blue states. I'm not talking about a poll. Do you think these people answer polls, bro? Do you think these people answer polls? Do you think these people trust polls? I don't.
End to this system. And you don't realize it because we don't always walk around with a hammer and sickle on our shirts. Maybe we should so we can find each other more easily. You don't realize that when you're crossing the street, the person coming this way is also a communist. And the letter carrier that drops off your mail is also a communist. And so is the crossing guard at the intersection at the school on your block. And the construction worker on the job site that you just walked past, also a communist. And so are some of the office workers in the company that's managing that job site.
And the teachers in your kids' schools, also communists. And people in the military, especially that guy that lit himself on fire, also communists. These people are all over the place. They aren't just onesies and twosies. And guys, as a reminder, it only takes like 15% of the entire population in order to elicit a revolution. It doesn't take that many people to elicit a revolution. If they and 20% of young people are saying that communism is an ideal ideology for them. 20%. That's more than enough to elicit the revolution, guys. But no, Jesse Kelly's blocking all of my followers on Twitter for daring to suggest that he talked to someone that actually follows the far left. That's the state of conservatism right there.
And some of the workers who are picking up garbage on your street Monday morning before the sun comes up are also communists. And if anyone here thinks I'm exaggerating, I was just talking about my branch. Those are the comrades I see every Sunday. But the best part of it, really the best thing, is that we know that we've only just scratched the surface. There are so many more out there. And it's something that I've honestly just realized more fully in the last couple of months as well. Putting up the posters, the stickers, putting up this picture of Karl Marx saying, "Are you a communist?" Asking that question.
Guys, these stickers are all over college campuses. I've been hearing from people like Carl, and I've seen those stickers before, because they hold these Marxist schools all over the country. Actually, let me show you this. I was on their website last night. I was working on doing journalism, because God knows the conservatives aren't going to do it. So I was doing their journalism for them. I want to show you how many events these people had last year. These are all events that they held all over the country last year. Look at all these events. Just this one group. Look at that. Let's go through it again. That's a lot of events, and that's all over the country, and those are in-person events. Are you guys getting this? These are not onesies and twosies. These people are highly organized. They have a system. They're copying and pasting all over the country to just if something works in Austin, Texas, they launch it in Dallas. If it works in Dallas, they launch it in Minneapolis. If it works in Minneapolis, they launch it in Portland. They launch it in Seattle. They have branches in Oklahoma. They have a branch in South Dakota. They have branches in Indiana, all up and down the eastern seaboard. Colorado is actually getting communist legislation passed right now. They're more organized than the libertarians by a long shot, and they're more organized than the Republicans and the GOP. And we can look at their stuff and ascertain that. This is not speculation. This is what they're doing in the real world.
Question has resulted in being bombarded with thousands and thousands of people who are writing us saying, yes, I'm a communist. I want to fight. And it's not this intellectual, like, I want a hobby. I want like-minded people as well to interact with. It's when I look around at this world, I have to fight. It's people who feel a resolve. It's a revolutionary sentiment that's developing
A
in society.
revolutionary sentiment.
And what we're trying to do, what the IMT is doing, well, we're doing everything we can think of to try and find that layer and to organize it, to bring it together. The ones who are not just angry, not just the ones who hate being exploited and they hate what the ruling class is doing, it's the ones that want to take action.
Also, they will accept a martyr for the revolution. This Aaron kid is a martyr. They're holding him up as a martyr. They're holding vigils in his name. They're more than happy to accept martyrs. And guys, when conservatives won't leave their house wearing a MAGA hat because they're afraid of what will happen if they leave their house, these people are willing to die for what they believe. I'm going to say that again. These people are willing to die for what they believe. These people are very literally willing to light themselves on fire for what they believe. They are in a cult. There's a reason this show is named The Cult. They are in a cult. They are indoctrinated into a cult. Do you guys remember Jonestown? Jonestown was the first introduction that I ever had to what a cult is. I used to, when I was younger, I was like obsessed with learning about Jonestown. It was a weird thing, but I've always been into dystopian things, like from the time I was like a teenager. There was a documentary when I was in high school about Jonestown. I must have watched that documentary like 50 times. They were a socialist cult where they literally drank the Kool-Aid. They were literally willing to die for what they believe. These people are in exactly the same type of cult, except it's not led by one charismatic leader. It's led by the inner party, the academics, the intellectuals, the authors, the organizers. Every single one of these people is a cog in a machine that is the collective. And the brilliant way that they have set up their cult is that any cog can be removed from the machine at any time and replaced with another cog. If Sophie Lewis ever goes off the reservation and she decides she doesn't want to do this anymore, or she says some wacky things, you know what they do? They take her out. They replace her with someone else. And the machine just keeps on going. They take out their members like broken parts of an engine. They replace them with a new part, and the whole thing keeps on going. They don't need one leader. They are the collective. The Borg is the leader. It's like a factory. It's ironic that they want to control the means of production, isn't it? Because it is a factory. That's what it is. Conservatives are not going to civil war. I know they like to shout it. I know they like to say 1776. I know they like to wear American flags on their shirts and stuff like that, and LARP that they're like, the left better not do this or it's civil war this time. I've mentioned this a couple times now. The real civil war is not going to be left versus right. The real civil war is going to come in about 10 to 15 years, and it's going to be the radical revolutionary socialists versus the government. they're going to try to violently overthrow the government. 100%. Because they're in a cult. They are willing to die for their cult. They are perfectly aware that their revolution is going to require violence. And they're willing to put themselves up for it. Conservatives are not willing to do that. And they can shit talk these people as mentally ill all they want, but it changes nothing. They are willing to die for what they believe in.
And for lack of a more scientific term, we have a term for this layer of people, those communists who are looking to take action. We call them the golden layer. And it's not just because we're talking about tapping into a gold vein, a gold mine of revolutionary workers. It's also a way of recognizing what a special layer, what a special segment of society this is. Here we are in a country with no mass communist force yet. There's no mass organization that's making the case for communism systematically in the day-to-day. There's no force that's transmitting that into society. On the contrary, you've been bombarded with anti-communist propaganda like no other country has for generation after generation. And yet, what the polls say is that there are 30 million people in this country who view communism as the ideal economic system. And not only that, if you look around at like the left, at what you see on the left, you don't see a lot of fire, you don't see a lot of this revolutionary sentiment. You see a lot of pessimism. You see a lot of demoralization on the left. You see the consequences of a postmodern influence in culture. Postmodernism is a really pathetic philosophy. It's a philosophy that says there is no point to anything. There is no direction to history. There's no reason.
Excuse me, what? Postmodernism is a pathetic philosophy? Really? Really? So these guys are Marxist-Leninists. Why? Rottweiler, I'm looking at you, but anyone else can answer this question too if you guys have answers for this. Why would he say that postmodernism is, what did he say? He shit-talked postmodernism. I don't know exactly what he was. Well, they're Leninists. They're Leninists. That's for sure. Let's listen again.
You don't see a lot of this revolutionary sentiment. You see a lot of pessimism. You see a lot of demoralization on the left. You see the consequences of a postmodern influence in culture.
Wait. Dustin. We need to have a conversation, bro. I know you mean well. I'm sorry to break this news for you. There is no way in this lifetime Republicans are going to end up in power for the next 8 years. That's not going to happen, Dustin. But even if it did happen, it doesn't matter because these people don't do what they do through political power. They do not gain what they gain through political power. They gain it through institutional power. So even if by some miracle this actually happened, it would make no difference at all. That's the power of institutional power versus political power. If you have questions about institutional power versus political power, you can head over to, wait for it. You can head over to the Actively Unwoke Substack, and I want you to find this article right here, which is on the homepage right now. It's in the Woke 101 series, and it is called How the Woke Left Gains Power. And this will explain to you why, even if Republicans win literally every single level of government in November, which is not going to happen in any stretch of the imagination, but let's play in this land. Even if they win the House, the Senate, and the presidency, it doesn't matter. Because that's not how they're doing what they want to do. So I understand why you're asking the question. I'm not trying to shit talk you or anything, but go read that article for me, and that will explain that for you. Hang on, let me just get the sound set up, and then I'll do Rottweiler's super chat. Dr. K, this is a very interesting point. Old school Marxists hate postmodernists, queer Marxism is postmodernist, and vice versa, they hate Foucault. See, that's important context here because this is actually something I was wondering about because I wasn't getting a lot of queer Marxism from these people, which is good. That's good. So I don't look at this particular group as the ones that are pushing gender ideology. There are other socialists who are doing that though. They're just not this group. So that's why they hate postmodernism because that's where queer theory comes from. Got it. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. That doesn't mean these people are dangerous for different reasons than the queer Marxists. Someone was asking me the other day, and I think I explained this on stream. Someone asked me, Carlin, why doesn't every Marxist use they, them pronouns? Well, not every Marxist is a queer Marxist. That's why. The queer Marxists use they, them pronouns, but not every Marxist does.
Is a really pathetic philosophy. It's a philosophy that says there is no point to anything. There is no direction to history. There's no reason for optimism. There's no direction. There's nothing out there for us. And so instead, it's just this mocking irony of everything. And despite that, the communist layer is coming forward. Despite that, despite the influence of this doomerism, this apocalyptic view of what's happening, this dystopian themes that are coming into mass media and into the culture, despite all of that, the golden layer is saying, I think we can fight for a better world. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm committed to.
No.
And if
No. This is not correct, Jeremy. No, they won't. There are many, many, many true believer queer Marxists. It's just not these people. Just because it's not this particular group doesn't mean they're useful idiots. We need to be better about our terminology than this, and that's just not true. Just a different group.
Out of those 30 million communists out there, let's say 1 out of 1,000 is really looking to take action. If 1 out of 1,000 is saying, this isn't just, I wish we could live under communism. No, I'm really, I'm ready to fight for it. 1 out of 1,000 would give us a force of 30,000 people in this country. 30,000 well-organized communists, 30,000 who are determined, who are rowing in the same direction, who have a consistent message. With that, you can win over the working class. With 30,000 like that, and if you win the working class, if you're an instrument in the hands of the working class can transform society. We have a road to changing this system. As individuals, we can do nothing. But if you're talking about bringing thousands and thousands of communists together, then we can start talking about a vast network of revolutionary recruiters, of communist cells in every workplace, in every union, in every major city, every working class neighborhood, bringing an implacable, uncompromising class war attitude into every picket line, into every strike battle. Once again, the purpose of this weekend is to bring that.
Dustin, if you're interested in that, I actually have a video on my X page where I walk through that. You can find it in the Unwoke Army community. You can find it on my page somewhere. I also have, I have clips on my YouTube channel about that. I have a whole timeline laid out on my Substack. So I'm not going to go over it right now because I've made videos about this before, but you're more than welcome to reference the stuff I've already created where I lay out specifically, here is why this is the timeline. But it's not something I'm just making up. There is a thought process to it.
Forced together to prepare our comrades, to give us the tools for that task. Because to be an effective communist, you have to be successful at recruiting other communists. You have to organize people together. You have to be building a force. And it's not enough to hate capitalism to do that successfully. We also have to have depth, as John was saying. We need to have explanations. We need to have answers, not just for our coworkers, our friends, our family, but for other communists as well. The willpower itself is not enough. So that's what I want to try and tackle with this session. Some of the questions that have been coming up. I think the first one is why are we seeing this phenomenon in the political landscape where a quarter of the way into the 21st century, this country, the heart, the belly of the beast, the heart of world imperialism is crawling with millions of people who see a hammer and sickle and say, yep, that's me, who see a picture of Karl Marx, that's what I want. How is it that we got to this point? When revolutionary ideas become widespread like that, it tells you something about the state of the system, the state of the foundation of society. We are walking, living, breathing evidence of the impasse of capitalism. of a system that has reached its limits long ago, that stopped moving forward, that's now in a period of decline. It's a system like that that produces especially young revolutionaries, a young generation of people who don't see a future for themselves under this system. There was a fragment of a conversation that a comrade reported here in New York a few weeks ago, walking to the train, and he overhears a mother and daughter probably going to school. He said the daughter was probably 10 years old. And this is the little fragment that he recorded. He says, the mom says, "Yep, capitalism's an economic system." And the daughter says, "And it's based on money?" And the mother says, "Yes, well, money is a part of it." The daughter says, "Then we need to end it."
They want to eliminate all money. I hope that's clear to people. The UCLA School of Education is teaching elementary school kids that when we have a world built on equity, not only will we have no crime because everyone will have everything they need when the world is built on equity, they're also teaching kids that in the world built on equity, we will not need money and we won't need banks. Now, I'm actually in favor of getting rid of the Fed and all of those evil empire banking systems. I'm fine with that. I agree with them. But they literally do want to abolish all money. Oh, Nick got blocked by Jesse Kelly for suggesting I should. Isn't that funny? Why is Jesse? I've never even spoken to Jesse Kelly. Is there some sort of conservative memo going around saying don't talk to that socialist bitch? I really wonder. Is there some sort of club where they're like, don't talk to that woman who investigates far left socialists? She's a real bitch. Isn't that funny? That just suggesting that they talk to me leads Jesse Kelly to blocking you. Huh.
And the mom said, "Well, hold on, now you need to listen." But then they walked off into the train. So that was the end of the anecdote. But we printed it in our press. This is another anecdote I heard this week from a comrade who met another comrade who works with third graders about how their top concerns are the climate crisis and school shooters. How's that for a picture of a society in decline? This is the kind of world that produces a generation of revolutionaries. I also read this was published a couple days ago in the Washington Post. Not the wealth gap, they're talking about the death gap between rich and poor is widening. The United States is failing at a fundamental mission, keeping people alive. It says specifically working age people are dying at a higher rate than 40 years ago. Could it have to do maybe with the fact that 112 million people are struggling to afford healthcare? Could it be the fact that maybe there hasn't been a raise in real wages in 50 years, that we've had 50 years of decline? Could it be the fact that half of the American workforce doesn't earn enough to rent a one-bedroom apartment anywhere in this country? That a minimum wage worker can't afford to rent an apartment anywhere? They have to work multiple jobs? This is the condition of the American working class in the 21st century. Actually, it was described very vividly 175 years ago in a text written in 1848. Marx talks in the manifesto about how, on average, the worker is receiving just what's absolutely necessary to keep the worker existing as a worker. It says it merely suffices to prolong and reproduce a bare existence. The laborer lives merely to increase capital and is allowed to live only insofar as the interest of the ruling class requires it. So when they don't require it, that's the end. That's the purpose of being a proletarian in this system. A third of the workforce is earning $15 an hour or less. This is going back to that Washington Post. It said, America is increasingly a country of haves and have-nots, measured not just by bank accounts and property values, but also by vital signs and grave markers. Dying prematurely has become the most telling measure of the nation's growing inequality. They measured the death rate in the poorest 10% of counties and found that it's risen over the past 4 decades by 570%.
Lindsay memo, what does that mean, Kenneth?
So here's, again, the manifesto. And here it becomes evident that the bourgeoisie is unfit any longer to be the ruling class in a society and to impose its conditions of existence upon society as an overriding law. It is unfit to rule because it is incompetent to assure an existence to its slave within his slavery, because it cannot help letting him sink into such a state that it has to feed him instead of being fed by him. Society can no longer live under this bourgeoisie.
Bourgeoisie
its
means
existence
capitalist.
is no longer compatible with society. This is a hint about why we see the rise of a communist movement more broadly. These conditions that people are living in are screaming out class struggle. And there have been other moments in history when people find themselves in conditions where they realize we have nothing to live on except our ability to work. And we are at the mercy of a boss. We are proletarians. And they realize that's not just my individual problem. That's a problem shared by millions of people. That's the problem shared by a segment of society. That's what it means to see rising class consciousness. And you see it coming out. I mean, it's screaming forward right now.
Guys, when people believe they have nothing to lose, that's when they get their most dangerous. And these people are running around the country doing events every single, like several a month, all over the country, where they are convincing rooms full of people who have been indoctrinated into this ideology since they were 5 in the public schools, people who probably don't have the jobs that they really thought that they were going to get after going to college for 4, 6, 8, etc. years. And they're convincing these people, you have nothing else to lose. Society has failed you. The only way that you are ever going to be happy and live in a world where you are taken care of is to become a communist and to help us elicit the revolution. They are convincing young, lost people who have been indoctrinated into a cult their entire lives that they have nothing else to lose and everything to gain. And they reinforce this belief all the time. Everything these people do is to reinforce the cult. This is so different than people who are conservatives and Republicans. And this is why the right isn't taking this seriously. Because the right doesn't believe these people are serious. The right believes these people are mentally ill. You talk to Jesse Kelly about this, he's going to say, those are a bunch of mentally ill libtards. Come take our guns, bro. Something like that. Jesse Kelly is not a serious person. James Lindsay is not a serious person. None of the people talking about this, pretending to care about this, are serious people. They are the serious people. Well, Dustin, you're right about this. The right doesn't believe these people exist because the right would sooner block people on Twitter who are trying to tell them. Jesse Kelly has blocked like half a dozen people in my audience today just for telling him, you should really talk to Carlin about these people. Jesse, you wrote an entire book about communism. Maybe you should talk to Carlin about these people. Jesse Kelly was so concerned about that he's blocking everyone that even mentions my name. That's how serious the right is.
The 2020s, at this time, with the strike wave, it's putting it front and center. This is the way people feel. It's the realization that's coming to the fore. This is someone wrote us this.
Well, that's true enough, isn't it?
One of these thousands of
They're all obsessed and deranged.
Someone in Minneapolis saying, I'm a communist. They have to explain why you want to join. We get these little messages with each one. This person says, capitalism is fucked. I'm forced to sell myself to survive while those in power keep this system in place. And they don't have to sell themselves to survive. I've been working manufacturing for years, and I'm starting to wake up, and I'm sick of it. That's how millions of people feel right now. And that's because, of course, half a century has passed since the end of the post-war boom. The material basis for this illusion that the American dream, one generation is going to live better than the previous generation, that vanished 5 decades ago. And on the contrary, by every measure, we have a steady decline in the quality of life. It's not just the conditions that the working class is experiencing. It's also, you can see the demoralization of the ruling class. Do you think the ruling class is confident in their chances of continuing this system the way that's going? They have a pretty high bird's eye view of the trajectory of this system. They're not very confident. Here's Maplecroft Risk Assessment, a global analyst. They do these risk assessments to give warnings to the capitalist class. This one's a warning for the insurance market. It says 85% of US cities face high risks of
Hey,
strikes.
I just want to say, Reaper's Son, I saw you posting those over on Twitter. I saw you post a whole thread of them today. I really appreciate you sharing that stuff. I will definitely continue to post the videos. And we're going to be putting together a more concerted effort to get messaging out on Twitter, but you're doing a great job, and I really do appreciate you, bro. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Riots and civil commotion in the next 12 months. That was published 2 weeks ago. It says high levels of income inequality mean that US urban hubs could face an elevated risk of unrest in the next year. The November 2024 election may also be a spark that ignites the US underlying SRCC, strikes, riots, and civil commotion risk factors. The protests sparked by the death of George Floyd in 2020 resulted, this is the ruling class talking about the largest mass movement in the history of this country. An inspiring glimpse of what this country is capable of. Here's how they talk about it. The death of George Floyd in 2020, which resulted in $2.5 billion to...
Do I need to try to get on InfoWars? I'm honestly asking. I'm pretty sure I could get on InfoWars if I wanted to. I'm pretty sure. But I don't know if it's a good idea. First off, because I don't like going on shows. But I feel like Alex Jones might be one of the few people who might actually be receptive to this sort of stuff and not an asshole. But then I have mixed feelings about being associated with Alex Jones because I think that Alex Jones says and does some dumb stuff. No offense. I say and do some dumb stuff too. People probably have the same question about me. I don't know. A lot of people are saying yes. Some people are saying no. See, because the thing of it is I actually do want my stuff to be accessible to like independents and disaffected lefties as well, which is part of why the conservatives hate me. Is like I don't follow their talking points because I need my content to be accessible to disaffected lefties. And if disaffected lefties hear the words Alex Jones, they might go, "Oh, well, that's retarded. Like she's obviously a far right lunatic." When I'm like, I'm not even on the right, bro. Well, I don't like going on shows. I don't want to just like, I want to actually be able to teach people. I want to be able to talk about what I want to talk about. You know, I do have contacts at InfoWars though. I've never called in anything there, but I do have them and I think that I could. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to think about it.
To $3 billion in insured losses serve as a reminder that damaging bouts...
No. Josh Slocum for years has been telling people that I'm a cluster B narcissist. I ain't going on no disaffected podcast where some asshole that I've never spoken to in my life has been running around the internet for years calling me a cluster B narcissist. Josh Slocum is blatantly irresponsible. And I'm not the only one he's done this to. Josh Slocum has broken up people's marriages with this shit. What he's doing is irresponsible. I want no part of it. Well, Nigel, I'm not going to change the name of the Unwoke Wiki because someone doesn't like it. I mean, I hear you, but it's like if they're Nigel, you know it's not really about the name, right? Just show them the information in the wiki. You don't have to show them the wiki. Just take a screenshot of the information that we have in it. Because their objection isn't really the name. The objection is they don't want to know.
Of unrest are no longer limited to territories that have traditionally been deemed politically unstable. You're right. It's no longer limited. Nowhere is safe. This is the way the working class feels everywhere. But that's the rosy outlook of the capitalists. That's the ruling class. You see this chaos in Congress, the state of the economy, the global instability, there is no confidence
I don't know how
or
to get in touch
optimism
with
within
Joe
the ruling
Rogan.
class.
I mean, I suppose I do have mutual contacts with Joe Rogan, but like, I don't know how to get in touch with him. That's intimidating to me. I don't know if I want to. Like, that's something I would sooner pursue InfoWars than Joe Rogan, and I'm not even sure about that. Okay, let's see. Amber Christie over on Rumble. Sorry, I missed this chat earlier. Are helicopter parents partly to blame, never teaching these kids that you have to work hard and get everyone a trophy? I won't blame helicopter parents for teaching kids that like everyone gets a trophy as much as I would blame those parents for putting their kids in public school in the first place and not homeschooling them. I mean, anyone who has kids in public school is to blame. I'm sorry. There's more than enough evidence that kids need to be pulled out of public schools. I don't need free weed. Come on.
The first page of the Communist Manifesto, it opens up with a specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism. And it goes on to say basically that
I
this
don't have
movement is
any
on the
contact
rise.
with him.
The
I don't know how to
powers
do
of
that.
Europe are recognizing communism itself to be a power. They're acknowledging it. So they're saying it's high time that communists should openly, in the face of the whole world, publish their views, their aims, their tendencies, and meet this nursery tale of the specter of communism with a manifesto of the party itself. Marx and Engels were saying, this thing is on the rise. Let's come out and tell the world what we intend to do. We intend to change this world. We're not just here to analyze it and interpret it. Our plan is to intervene in the course of history. And that's not saying much, because the socialist revolution is not just going to change the course of history. It's going to usher in the beginning of a truly human history. That's the way it's going to be seen. In hindsight, by future generations, they'll look back at the socialist revolution as the beginning of civilization.
Yo, listen, man. What he just said is incredibly powerful. They truly believe, these people believe, they are ushering in a new chapter in human history where they are very literally going to save the world because of climate change. They believe that capitalism causes climate change, and without abolishing capitalism, then the world is going to be destroyed. They believe they are at the precipice of a new world, an enlightenment, a rebirth of humanity, and they're the ones that are going to elicit it. And whether or not you think that's crazy, they believe that.
As that moment when our species finally took that step from its brutal, prehistoric class barbarism and finally began to operate like a human society should. When people finally stopped exploiting and starving each other. When people stopped being forced to live their lives to enrich somebody else and began living life for the sake of enjoying being alive. When people started pursuing learning, improvement, finding challenges, reaching new heights. In that sense, what is communism? For us in this room, we can answer that. It's what we're going to achieve. Communism is our future. It's also a return. It's also a return on a much higher level to a state that our species lived in for a vast majority of its existence. If you consider that it came out 5 years ago, right? That they found these human remains, modern human remains in Morocco from 300,000 years ago. That sent back the timeline of how long we understood modern humans to be existing as a species. For the vast majority of that time, we've lived under capitalism 1/1000th of our existence as a species, and yet they tell us that this is the natural state, that this is human nature, this is the eternal thing. For the vast majority,
they believe that capitalism is a social construct that was forced on us because of the profit motive. They believe that the natural state of humanity is without capitalism. And again, that means private property ownership. What do they mean when they say private property? They mean your home, they mean your land, they mean your business, they mean your rental properties, they mean your parental rights, they mean your individual liberties. They want all healthcare public, no private healthcare, no private doctors. They want all education public, no private schools, no homeschooling. They want all energy public and collective, all gas public and collective. That means the government decides who gets heat in the winter and who gets gas for their car. All of that. Oh, and the food. Let's not forget the food. Because the food should also be owned by the collective. That means the government gets to decide who eats.
Of that time, we had no classes whatsoever. 98% of our existence was lived with no ruling class exploiting the labor of everyone else, no tiny minority enriching itself at the expense of everybody else, no prisons, police, armies, state, no money, no inequality, no rich and poor, no unemployment. And so when people talk to us about human nature and say that capitalism,
Listen to what they think this is. Listen to what they think that that the world will be without capitalism.
Any minority enriching itself at the expense of everybody else, no prisons, police, armies, state, no money, no inequality, no rich and poor,
no police, no armies, no prisons, no state, no money, no inequality, no rich, no poor, no unemployment. The communists were telling me on Twitter earlier today they believe the government should provide all housing, which means you don't own a house, you don't own land. The government owns everything. No money, no future.
no unemployment. And so when people talk to us about human nature and say that capitalism, you have to laugh when they say that capitalism is the natural thing. The ruling class, of course, always upholds its own system as what's natural. This is, again, in the manifesto, Marx said that the capitalists view their own system as if it were eternal, as if the structure of capitalism were based on the laws of nature and reason. He says to the bourgeoisie, this is a selfish misconception which you share with every ruling class that has preceded you. The feudal lords, the absolute monarchs, they assumed they would continue to rule generation after generation forever and ever. The Tsarist dynasty that was overthrown, the Romanovs, overthrown in 1917, they were in power for 3 centuries before 1917 arrived. They thought it would just continue. And the ruling class today also thinks, well, I'm not sure how confident they are. I don't think they expect another 300 years. But to really tackle these questions, I want to dive to a deeper level of Marxism, because being a Marxist is not just hating capitalism. It's not just wanting an alternative, wanting something better. It's also about having the tools, having a way of wrapping we lived, let's go back a bit. If we were on a time clock.
Hang on. So they believe monarchy equals capitalism? Oh yeah. There ain't going to be no monarchy. The monarchy is the ultimate hierarchy. These people hate hierarchy. Remember, guys, equity is about sameness. Equity, when they say no rich, no poor, everyone is at the same level. In theory, it doesn't actually work out like that, of course. But what they want is no hierarchy. No rich, no poor, no powerful, no oppressed, no owners, no owned. Everyone at the same level. The monarchy is the ultimate hierarchy.
12 hours, and that's the existence of our species. We've lived under capitalism for around 40 seconds. So all of us have been born into this world in these last 40 seconds. And of course, class society, capitalism is all that we've known. If we want to be able to explain how can our species go to the next step, what is it going to look like to go from this system to a system where we have no classes? We have to be able to think in a long-term view of history. It's not your everyday common sense reasoning for what this step is going to mean. We need theory for that. We need Marxist theory. And we're drawing on the Marxist view of history. It's called the materialist view of history, which we'll get into. And this is a key aspect of theory. It's something that actually separates Marxism. The birth of Marxism was the birth of scientific socialism. It's what separated Marxism from all the utopian communists that came before, many of whom hated capitalism. They hated the world that they lived in, but they basically were trying to develop a schema, like imagine what could this world be like. They would come up with these sometimes very detailed blueprints. And they basically thought that the next step, like changing society, would be the fruit of inspired imagination. Marxism doesn't work that way. Marxism actually emerged in contrast to this kind of speculation. Marx wasn't about trying to come up with a blueprint of an ideal utopia and say, this is an idea that can just spread. And then if people see the reason, they see the light, and then we're going to live in this better way. That's not how Marxists think about communism, because it's not the way history unfolds. You know, one species emerges from a previous species. It doesn't just come up with the idea to become another species. It's actually not a conscious process at all. We'll get into that. But just to say that the foundations of Marxist theory.
One species emerges from a previous species, and it's not a conscious process. So this is why the main strategy that these guys use is they get into positions of institutional power, jobs they can't be fired from, and they implement policies, procedures, laws, what have you, to slowly push everything to the left. That's what the Battle of Inches is. It's implementing laws and policies that you don't know about because they're like random and they're in an organization that you're not paying attention to because millions of things happen all over the world every single day that we don't know about. And every single one of those policies is slowly pushing all of us to the left. And we don't find out about this until weeks, months, years, decades in some case, because we're focused on our own life. We're doing what we want to do, and every single minute that we're doing what we want to do, these people pushing everything inch by inch by inch by inch by inch. This is the very definition of the frog being put in a pot of cool water. The frog thinks everything is fine. The water's cool. And then you slowly bring it up to a boil. So slowly the frog doesn't notice that the temperature's changing until the frog is boiled alive. If you just put the frog in the pot of hot water, frog jumps right out. But if you put the frog in a pot of cold water and you slowly turn up the heat, that frog is going to sit there and be boiled alive. We're the frog, guys. We're the frog. We're all in the pot of water right now. And the pot of the water is getting really fucking hot. But we don't notice because it just slowly got hot and it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And it's going to start getting real uncomfortable real soon. Yeah, well, we were busy being bourgeois. They were busy being socialist.
You know, on the philosophical level, it's materialist. When we talk about materialism, philosophical materialism,
send it to me. Take a picture.
To explain it for the comments who are, starting to dive into Marxist philosophy, this word has different meanings. It's not the everyday use of the word materialism. We want to have nice things and we care about possessions. Although I think we will have nice things under a planned economy. Philosophical materialism means recognizing
a planned economy. What does a planned economy mean? Pop quiz for the chat. He said, but I'm pretty sure we can have nice things under a planned economy. What does that mean? To have a planned economy? Anyone want to guess? What does it mean to have a planned economy? Well, it does mean equity. Yep. The state decides everything. Centrally planned by the people. Centralized by a specific power. Everyone gets the same. A centralized economy. Guys, you don't get your business under communism. They get to decide what is produced, what is not produced, how much of those things are produced, who gets what, all the things we don't need. Yeah, the higher minds telling us what we're getting. And we don't have mutually assured starvation. Indeed. Indeed.
That there is an objective, there's a material reality, and it exists independently of the way any human thinks about it, any mind thinks about it. Reality isn't created by the mind. our mind's a reflection of a really existing reality that exists independently of the mind. That's pretty basic, right? And we're saying that the universe is made of matter, it's eternal, and it's one reality. There's no spiritual plane, there's no heaven or hell, there's no God. The opposite of materialism is idealism, the idea that reality is created by the mind, that it's all, being perceived, that the mind is primary, and ultimately this leads back to religious view of the world. Now, a materialist view, it's a scientific view, it's a rational, I think it could appear pretty straightforward to us today. If you actually look at the history of philosophy, it was a long, torturous journey for humans to arrive at this basic appreciation of reality in a materialist sense. The earliest Greek philosophers, the Ionian philosophers of the 6th century BC, they were materialists. They started out by saying the gods didn't create this world, so what is this world made of? How did this? And that's what set them on that path.
Look, I have my red slime.
That's the beginning of this long
Perfect.
thread. The Enlightenment, you could say, the 300 years leading up to the French Revolution would have been kind of the culmination of this history. That was the high point, the triumph of materialism, the age of reason. And that's basically what prepared the way for the French Revolution. This wasn't just an intellectual revolution. This was part of a social revolution in the full sense of the word. When the capitalist class entered the scene of history, it was a rising force. It was actually something that was pushing back against reaction in the form of feudalism. To overthrow the feudal social system, to overthrow that order, they had to destroy the ideological support, all the ideological justification, the dogma of the Christian church, the idea of the divine right of kings, all of that had to be destroyed. And so materialism was a weapon in the hands of...
That is a rare mention of Christianity. That doesn't happen often. So what I usually hear from people on Twitter is, Carlin, socialists want to destroy Christianity. That's what they mean. And I'm like, no, they don't. They never talk about Christianity. But on rare occasions, they do. And so that probably is like the first mention of Christianity that I've heard probably in months, if I'm on, unless we were watching specifically something about religion. Most of the time, so how I have heard socialists talk about religion, and this is all religion, this is not just Christianity, most often what they're talking about is co-opting the church as a political organizing force. They're actually not talking about destroying the religion. They just want to co-opt it to use it for their purpose.
The rising capitalist class at that point. Marx studied, by the way, this history of philosophy. He gained an encyclopedic understanding of it. And you could say that Marxism stands on the shore.
Brooklyn, you're one of those people that likes to tell me this is about Christianity. That was not a big tell. That was one person making an offhanded comment once. When socialists care about something, they talk about it all the time. I don't care what any Brooklyn, I do not care what any book that any conservative influencer has written on this. I don't care. I love you. I really, really do. I don't care. If they don't talk about it, then they don't care about it. When socialists talk about things, when socialists care about things, they talk about it all the fucking time. We can find presentations on it. We can find events on it. Well, maybe I misunderstood what you said, but like, this happens. This is why I don't even want to throw a bone to the Christians. I don't think I did. I really don't think. Okay, I'm not going to get into this argument right now, but what I will say is that the only time that I have heard the vast majority of socialists talk about Christianity is when they're talking about co-opting it as a political okay, you want to argue right now and disrupt the entire stream? Fine. So he just showed the big tell. There's no way to misread that, Brooklyn. That was not a big tell. That was an offhanded comment. And now we're not going to argue anymore. Brooklyn, I don't give a fuck. When socialists care about things. They talk about it all the time. They hold events about it. They have trainings about it. They write massive amounts of books about it. I don't care what some book that was probably written by a fucking conservative said one time. I did not misread your comment, Brooklyn. I've been displaying them on the screen. And now you're going to stop arguing with me in my chat. We are moving on. We are not dealing in the reality of unhinged fucking conservatism right now. I've been dealing in that reality all day. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to deal in the reality of the far left, not conspiracy theory bullshit.
Shoulders of the entire Enlightenment. Lenin said that Marxism is the legitimate successor to the best that humanity produced in the 19th century, as represented by German philosophy, English political economy, and French socialism. I think we could add to that, it's the legitimate successor to the entire Enlightenment. Marxism took that from its highest point, the achievements of maybe French materialism, and brought it to the next level. So how exactly did he bring it to the next level? I think things get interesting when you start to take a materialist view and apply it to history, apply it to something that's developing. That's the thing that Marx and Engels did. In their youth, Marx and Engels were followers of the German philosopher Hegel. And this is another really crucial strand of Marxism. This is another component that contributed to the birth of Marxism. Hegel was also an encyclopedic thinker. He had a mastery of the history of philosophy as well. He approached history as this unfolding process. And this applies to the history of ideas itself, right? One school of thought emerges to contradict the assumptions of a previous school of philosophy. And it actually raises new problems and it raises new limitations. And then another school emerges to respond to that. And the system continues to go. That's the way you actually see a development from lower to higher, a change, an upward development in the way people think. But he saw human history the same way. Here's the interesting thing. He saw the history of society as this evolving, unfolding thread with a direction to it. Now, he was a contemporary of the French Revolution. He was inspired by that event. You can see how it had an impact on his revolutionary view of history. Hegel said, nothing is eternal. Nothing stays the same. Everything is in the process of becoming something else. Everything has a rise and a fall, a birth, a period, a lifespan, period of maturity, a decline, and an end. And you can see the revolutionary implications of this kind of view. This is dialectics, by the way. This is dialectical thinking, the logic of change, of contradiction, of the way that small incremental changes can lead to a tipping point, a catastrophe, a crisis, a complete transformation. So Hegel's great contribution was to look at history as a process that was unfolding. He was himself, paradoxically, he was an idealist. He thought that this was all moving in the direction of some great idea, some absolute. It was a mystical way of tying together his system. But what Marx and Engels did was they took that view of history as something that was unfolding and they put it on a materialist basis. That was the achievement that they made. They looked at human history as materialist, which nobody had ever done in a consistent way before. History isn't driven by the absolute idea. It's not driven forward by the mind of God. It's actually not driven forward by any mind. It's not driven forward by conscious decisions of humans, even though it's made up of conscious humans. Going back to this parallel with evolution, 3.5 billion years ago, the only life on this planet was microbes, single-celled organisms. And billions of years of evolution have transformed that level of an organism into all the variety of the plant and animal kingdom that we know today, including Homo sapiens. But that
Yeah, so this is a really good point, H. Tom. So that is why they like evolution. Well, I mean, I think we can all agree that, like, I think most of us can agree that evolution is a real thing. Maybe not. I don't know. We're not going to have that discussion right now. What I will say is that they see this as the next evolution of human society. They see this as the next evolution of human consciousness. They see this as the next evolution of the entire world. And apparently conservatives are going to die on the hill of evolution is not real because we're Bible thumping today. Oh, that's just great. Okay, good.
Amazing, I mean, mind-blowing process wasn't consciously driven or planned by any conscious will. It happened independently also of the actions of these the species themselves, right? There was never a decision, let's make a step from an evolutionary step from this species to another step. It didn't have to do with any kind of conscious decision. It was a result of natural selection. So far, so good, right? So human history is also an evolving process. Human history has also gone through an amazing process of transformation. As I said earlier, 98% of our existence was spent hunting and gathering in small bands, the Paleolithic or the Stone Age kind of existence. The Neolithic revolution 10,000 years ago, roughly. Some 6,000 years or so, the beginning of settled agriculture, irrigation, large-scale animal domestication, a division of labor, the rise of the first class societies, the rise of the first ruling classes, ancient civilizations, exploitation of slaves, feudalism based on serfdom and large-scale land ownership. Yeah, the rise of capitalism in modern industry. All of these, from each of these systems, you could say these are modes of production, right? From one system to the next, what is it that drove that progress? That's the question that Marx and Engels asked. It's actually a question that had not been asked in an approach in a materialist way until then.
Welcome, Mike.
And that's the question that gave rise to scientific socialism. What drives forward that progress from one system to another in history, from one mode of production to another? And the answer to that question, it might be familiar to you. The history of all hitherto existing society is a history of class struggles. It became the line of argument of the entire Communist Manifesto. If you have, in this rise and fall of one system after another, each system has a life cycle. It has a certain justification for emerging on the scene of history to begin with. And that justification is the system's ability to develop the productive forces. So here's another concept for us. I know we're throwing around a lot of technical terms here. This is the key to the materialist concept of history. The productive forces are the thread of all progress in human history. If you want to say, what is that continual thread of progress from the beginning of human history up until the present? It's that we've improved our ability to produce, the technique, productivity, technology, scientific advances, division of labor, the methods of production, our ability to meet our needs, to collaborate in a more and more intricate way, and make sure that it becomes more efficient, that fewer humans have to exert.
Actually, Mike, this is a funny question. Is it mandatory to wear red at these events? No. No, not at all. But in my experience, red is the only kind of non-drab color that's worn. So at these events, you're going to see a lot of black. You're going to see a lot of like khaki. You're going to see a lot of gray. You're going to see a lot of like olive green. You're going to see a lot of very black things. And then if there's a color, and I'm not talking about hair can be pink or blue or whatever, but like if someone is wearing a color, it's almost always red. Now that's not universal. There are people who wear color, but this is, except for the black feminist socialists. The black feminist socialists, man, it's like those bitches dress up like they're going to church. They got the big old fucking afros. Like we need to put them in a separate category, okay? But no, like for a lot of things, it is like red is like the only bright color that's worn.
An absolute amount of time in order to produce the needs of life. That's the development of the productive forces. If that is moving forward, if that is improving, then a system is healthy. It's continuing to move forward. If you have a ruling class on the top of that system, and that system is still moving forward, that ruling class can expect to continue to rule with relative stability until that stops being the case. And that's the thing. These systems have an expiration date. They all have a sell-by date. They all have the same arrangement, which helps the productive forces move forward at one stage. At a later stage, that same arrangement stops having that result. It starts to become a fetter, starts to become an obstacle. It starts to become a straitjacket on the productive forces. It no longer helps them move forward. And that's when that system is curved over the edge of its healthy point. It starts to move into a period of decline, of crisis. That's when you enter these kinds of periods where people start talking about the end of the world is coming, apocalyptic doom. Really, it's the end of a mode of production that's coming. It's this period of decline that starts expressing itself in all of these ways where people feel this thing isn't moving forward anymore. Sound familiar, by the way? We're in this phase. We're deep in this phase of capitalism's decline. It has long ago stopped developing the productive forces. And when that happens, you have this period of crisis, a revolutionary epoch opens up and the class struggle again comes to the fore. It becomes the real question. Is there another force in society? Is there another class that proposes another way of arranging society that can impose a new social structure on the economy and allow those productive forces to come forward? If they can, if that's true, if that exists, that class is historically justified to come to power, to reorganize society, to allow the productive forces to be unleashed, and a new mode of
Listen
production
to
begin.
what he just said. If there is another class that can socially structure society in a way that's going to be better for everyone, then what did he say specifically? That class is historically justified in taking power. Really, really think about this, guys. They think that overthrowing the United States government and implementing socialism is historically justified. Because that's what we're talking about. I said this earlier. I'm going to start saying this a lot more. I'm going to start saying this in every single stream. The Civil War will not be left versus right. It will not be red versus blue. It will be the radical revolutionary socialists versus the government. Because they want to overthrow the United States government. They want to get rid of the Constitution. They want to get rid of the Senate. They want to get rid of the Supreme Court. This is why they're trying to overthrow the Electoral College as well, by the way. When they say democracy, they mean socialism. They truly believe that they are on the right side of history. They believe that violent revolution against the United States government is historically justified. Let's listen again.
Arranging society that can impose a new social structure on the economy and allow those productive forces to come forward. If they can, if that's true, if that exists, that class is historically justified to come to power, to reorganize society, to allow the productive forces to be unleashed, and a new mode of production begins. That's the mechanism that has brought us from the Stone Age to the present day. That's the line of development, just like natural selection is the mechanism that allows one species to go to the next. It's all been these different stages that have developed the productive forces. So going back to the manifesto, the first part of it is Marx explaining how the capitalist class emerged. They had the same story. They had their day in the light. They unleashed massive productive forces. I mean, capitalism has transformed the productive forces like never before. Actually, that's the thing. That's the special thing about capitalism. Now that we have this level of productive forces, the market, the thing that produced all of this progress, long ago stopped producing it. Now you have this monopolization, you have the concentration of capital, massive debt. It's not moving forward. You have wars and all this brutality in order to sustain it. But now there's another force in society. There's the working class. That is the class that actually has the historical justification to come to power. But unlike previous ruling classes, here's what it says in the manifesto. All previous historical movements were movements of minorities or in the interest of minorities. The proletarian movement is the self-conscious, independent movement of the immense majority in the interest of the immense majority. For the first time in human history, you have a class that has a way to reorganize society that would actually represent the vast majority of the population taking conscious control of those productive forces. And that means that not only, the task of the capitalist class was to sweep aside the feudal ruling class, to sweep aside that structure of society, to unleash the productive forces by making the market bloom, right? Allowing free trade, allowing wage labor, dispossessing the peasantry. The task of the working class is now to sweep aside the capitalist class, capitalist ownership of the means of production. But instead of a new minority becoming a ruling class, the working class is going to transform the productive forces into the collective property of all of society. What this means is that our revolution, the socialist revolution, represents bringing about the end of class society. That's what that means. It means we're at a point now where we can be at the end of this line, this whole process that I said, 6,000 at the most, maybe it started to begin 10,000 years ago, this differentiation, the end of this phase of equality, the rise of class society, we can now bring that to an end. That's the threshold that we're standing on today. So that's the historical justification for the socialist revolution. A question that's often asked is, how do we win? Which is actually, should be a question for another session, right? I think that maybe for the next Marxist school, we'll have one all just.
Let me just read this. I don't understand this question, but maybe I just read it wrong. Would the radical revolutionary socialists be doing as had been done in other revolutions and just invade wealthier zip codes and communities like Beverly? Mike, they're not targeting wealthy communities. They want to overthrow the United States government. They're not trying to overthrow Beverly Hills. They're trying to overthrow the United States government. So no, I don't think that's what they're doing.
We're actually going to discuss Bolshevism this afternoon. But that's our model. We are Bolsheviks. The model of Bolshevism, let's assume that we do establish what we were talking about earlier, reaching those 30,000, reaching those communist cells in every major city and every workplace, sinking roots in the working class and establishing a revolutionary transmission belt of Marxist ideas into every struggle.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Tayton. Oh, that was my question. Each state is a sovereignty, so once the revolution happens, that's gone. Have we found a presentation on this? Well, I mean, they're probably not going to be borders when they do their revolution. These people don't believe in borders. So, I mean, the states are gone. There's no such thing as states' rights. That doesn't exist anymore. There would be communities like they're not going to be able to organize everything in the United States from like one central government. So I imagine there would be different communities created, but I wouldn't think it would be the same. Like it's not going to be comparable to what we have right now. Yeah, this is what I said, like districts like the Hunger Games. That's what I think. With peacekeepers to make sure everyone's following orders.
That's precisely the way to prepare for a revolution. In normal times, in the lead up to 1917, say, the Bolsheviks were seen as extreme fanatics. Even the vast majority of the Russian population would have thought it was pretty out there. It was pretty unthinkable that the working class was about to.
Lisa, are we existing in a fantasy world where conservatives are going to do anything productive to fight back? Really? You think that after the overthrow of the United States government, conservatives who refuse to get out of their easy chairs to do anything but go to a Trump rally are going to stage an insurrection in Montana, and you think they aren't going to be rounded up and shot and made an example of? Can we hinge into reality here for a moment? That's not going to happen. There's not going to be that. People who go against them are going to get shot on television. Do you guys understand this? When the violence starts, and it will start at some point, probably towards the very, very, very end, there might be little insurgencies here and there, but by and large, what happened in Red Dawn? You had the Wolverines, fine, they were annoying them. But by and large, everyone in that community was rounded up and put in the high school like prison. Everyone that was going against them was rounded up and put in the re-education gulag. And the ones that really went against them were executed. And you're telling me, again, this is... Lisa, you guys won't leave your house wearing a red hat. And you're telling me you're going to be able to fend off an army completely uncoordinated because you guys haven't done anything to coordinate? Because you've got a couple guns, they're going to surround your house and they're going to execute you on live TV for your trouble. That's what's going to happen. It is unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to fend them off once this actually gets started. And if you really think this is a possibility, why aren't you coordinating right now for it? And by the way, in case anyone is confused, we watched entire presentations from socialists talking about arming themselves. So before any conservative says this, let's just dispense with the notion that these people don't have guns, because that's not realistic. They do have guns. They are armed. How many people do you have on those properties, girl? You're going to defend every inch of that? Like, this is, Lisa, that's unrealistic. I'm sorry. How did you guys prevent a child being taken from her parents in Montana and transitioned in another state? How did this happen in Montana? Do you know how this happened in Montana? The Republican governor and the Republican lieutenant governor allowed this to happen in Montana. You guys can't even protect your own kids in Montana, girl. Right now, in present day, there was a child taken from her parents by the state to be transitioned in another state. And there weren't no Republicans doing shit about it. In fact, it was enforced by the Republican governor and by the Republican lieutenant governor. You can't protect your own kids, and you really think you're going to mount an insurrection against highly coordinated, highly organized people who have been planning this for years? Well, Lisa, I have direct contact with people who are working with the goddamn family. So it is a confirmed story. The family has been all over conservative media. You can talk to Gabrielle Clark, who is working directly with the family, if you have questions about that. But now I understand what's happening. You're a conspiracy theorist that's not hinged into reality. That story is completely true, Lisa. I got the video when I broke it directly from someone that's working with the family. You can't protect your own kids. You ain't mounting an insurrection against a highly organized group of socialists. I'm sorry. That's not realistic.
To take power, that they were going to become the new ruling force, that they would set up a new worker state. Leon Trotsky, the organizer of the insurrection, he said that just 2 years before 1917, the czarist military officers, the imperial officers, this is a quote, he said, they thought that the moderate liberals were extreme revolutionaries. Well, the Bolsheviks, in their eyes, belong to the fourth dimension. I think.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Rottweiler. Conservatives believe they'll be able to fight tanks, jets, drones, etc., sent by the regime with their AR-15s, and the military is full of Marxists. Oh yeah, conservatives, by the way, still think that the military is conservative and that they control the military. I'm like, they are so unhinged from reality. But remember, guys, they're going to win in November, and they're going to take back the government in November, and Trump is going to solve everything. He's going to fix everything in his first 100 days in office, and we're not going to have to worry anymore.
We belong to the fourth dimension for the Republicans that are talking about communism being the Democratic Party. We'll show them the real communists.
Yo! 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 Communists, I've been trying to tell them. Yo! Did you just hear that? The communists just flat out said what I have been screaming for a year and a half. We're going to play this a couple more times. I'm going to revel in this moment of I told you so, conservatives. Let's listen.
This is a quote. He said, they thought that the moderate liberals were extreme revolutionaries. Well, the Bolsheviks, in their eyes, belong to the fourth dimension. I think we belong to the fourth dimension for the Republicans that are talking about communism being the Democratic Party. We'll show them the real communists.
As a reminder, the Democratic Party are not the same as the radical revolutionary socialists. The progressives are not the same as the radical revolutionary socialists. These people, these specific people that run Marxist school, started the the Revolutionary Communists of America political party. They started a political party because they were pissed off that the Democratic Socialists betrayed them and capitulated to capitalism. These people do not believe that Democratic Socialists are real socialists, and they started a political party quite literally to replace them. So any notion that conservatives and Republicans, and they just got called out by the damn socialists. Conservatives and Republicans just got called out by the socialists for being so stupid as to think the Democrats are socialist. We're going to show you the real communists. Let's listen one more time just because I need this in my life. Just a little bit. One more time.
The officers, the imperial officers, this is a quote. He said, they thought that the moderate liberals were extreme revolutionaries. Well, the Bolsheviks, in their eyes, belong to the fourth dimension. I think we belong to the fourth dimension for the Republicans that are talking about communism being the Democratic Party. We'll show them the real communists.
And the crowd goes wild.
But the process of consciousness is transformed in the course of a revolution. Once a revolution broke out, all bets were off. Everyone's way of thinking changed. Everyone's perspective changed very rapidly. The Bolsheviks no longer sounded so crazy, actually. In fact, in the heat of events, the Bolshevik Party grew 30-fold. Millions of workers rallied behind their program. From a tiny minority, they started out, with just a few thousand at the beginning of that revolution. They won the support of the vast majority of the working class, while the support of the ruling government evaporated. Obviously, history doesn't repeat itself in exactly the same way. But if we did have those 30,000 comrades, a 30-fold growth of that would bring us quite close to 1 million. And the point is, we would have, with a force like that, you can win the support of many millions more. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds about how exactly a transfer of power could take place, but we did see a glimpse of revolutionary potential in this country in the summer of 2020. Let's imagine another scenario like the upsurge of the George Floyd movement, where millions and millions of people are pouring into the streets from coast to coast. But instead of a spontaneous uprising, we're talking about an organized uprising, a coordinated general strike action that has units of workers that have been preparing for it in every industry and every workplace, that are
a coordinated effort of workers across every union, because guys, every single union is run by socialists. Every single workplace. They're in the launch video for the Revolutionary Communists of America political party, they flat out said that their goal was to have people in every workplace, in every union, in every organization to coordinate exactly what they're talking about now. Let's just rewind.
Could take place, but we did see a glimpse of revolutionary potential in this country in the summer of 2020. Let's imagine another scenario like the upsurge of the George Floyd movement, where millions and millions of people are pouring into the streets from coast to coast. But instead of a spontaneous uprising, we're talking about an organized uprising, a coordinated general strike action that has units of workers that have been preparing for it in every industry and every workplace, that are organized as units preparing to do something more than just paralyze industry, to do something more than just bring society to a halt. You have strike committees, workers' councils prepared in advance. We saw what Trump did. He went underground in his...
Guys, the reason that they launched their political party now is the political party is the organizing force for the revolution. This is when shit starts to get real. They spent 70 years taking over the institutions inch by inch. They have spent the last 15 years proactively destabilizing our society. Now they move into the real stuff. Now the attacks on capitalism, which I've been telling you are going to come more and more often. And you know how they're going to come? By getting people inside every single... What have I been saying for years? The 4 goals of the woke left are always the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. We hear them attack capitalism all the time when they name capitalism and they say they want to abolish it. But what he is talking about is a literal attack on capitalism. They're literally using the workplaces to coordinate the revolution. They're using capitalism to coordinate the revolution. No, there's no way to destabilize their system because you would have to take over the institutions to do it. You're too late. Ain't no way to do it, bro. It took them 70 years to take over all the major institutions. That's what we're talking about. You don't get to destabilize their system with any significance until you take back the institutions, and that's not going to happen within your lifetime. Do you guys see how they are making their attack quite literally on capitalism? What have I been saying? Around 2008, 2009, 2010, they started creating equity departments in public school districts, formalized equity departments. This was right when Barack Obama got elected. This was when Occupy Wall Street happened. This is when we started seeing mentions of racism in the New York Times and the Washington Post and all those newspapers go through the roof. At the same time, and no one talks about this but me, they were forming equity departments and formalizing equity departments in every K through 12 school district across the country, and no one noticed because they didn't know what equity meant. They thought it was about equality when it never was. Equity means Marxism. What that means is the first graduating classes from high school and from college that have been educated in equity from the time they were 5 years old are graduating now and entering the workforce now. And they're not going back. This is not going to be one of those things where it's like liberal in your 20s or you have no heart, conservative by your 30s or you have no brain. That's not happening anymore because this is the first generation in which every single one of them has been educated in this stuff in every single class since they were 5 years old. You don't overcome that type of indoctrination. And now they're all going into the workforce. And these people are telling you flat out, we are going to use the workforces, the corporations, the organizations to coordinate the literal Marxist revolution. So someone asked earlier, why do I say 10 to 15 years left? Because that's the stage we're at. That's the stage we're at. We're at like stage 3 cancer and we're almost getting to stage 4. That's how bad the situation is, guys. And so if people think I have a tone when I can't get conservatives to listen to me and to actually watch this material, and James Lindsay wants to lie to his fucking audience, and Jesse Kelly wants to block anyone who mentions me in his comments, and Konstantin Kisin just couldn't be bothered to look because he's too busy saving the world for liberal values, and Dave Rubin is calling around people's jobs trying to get people fired if he doesn't like their position on Israel. If I sound like I have a tone when I'm dealing with these people who will not listen and who do not take this seriously, this is why. We don't have time left, and the conservative right and all the goddamn influencers who have access to be able to communicate to people are dicking around and not listening and not paying attention, and they're going, Carlin is just so mean on Twitter. She's just so mean. All she does is fight. It's so off-brand, darling. We can't be associated with that riffraff. And in the meantime, I'm the only one telling you the truth about what the timeline is on this thing and how it's happening and showing it to you so you don't have to take my word for it. You never have to take my word for it. Guys, you don't need to like my tone in order to see what is happening right in front of you. Bro, I accepted this a long ass time ago, and that's why we own guns. Let's listen one more time. And I'm going to let it play this time.
Millions of people are pouring into the streets from coast to coast. But instead of a spontaneous uprising, we're talking about an organized uprising, a coordinated general strike action that has units of workers that have been preparing for it in every industry and every workplace, that are organized as units preparing to do something more than just paralyze industry, to do something more than just bring society to a halt. You have strike committees, workers' councils prepared in advance. We saw what Trump did. He went underground in his bunker under the White House, but he also threatened to deploy the US Army to go and repress protesters in American cities. And it provoked an outcry from generals, from acting generals in the Pentagon, and from a series of retired generals who were openly defying a president, kind of not something you see every day, because they realize that's a serious thing. You don't talk about sending in the troops when you have a mass uprising like this. They understand that's the last card you can play. When you play the send in the troops card, you're pretty much out of cards, and you never really know how those troops are going to respond when their task is to shoot on unarmed civilians. When you have a mass uprising that is changing the way everyone thinks. Going back to the moment of the first time that the working class took power in the Paris Commune of 1871, that shift of power into the hands of the workers actually took place in a specific moment, you could say. There was an uprising taking place, and you had a lineup of troops with their rifles, and their general is realizing the situation's getting out of hand. We need to put an end to this now. We're going to lose control of this, and gives the order to aim at the crowd and to fire. And the soldiers are aiming, and they're not firing. Fire, and the soldiers are still not firing. And in that moment, something deep inside one of those soldiers comes to life, and the rifle is turned towards the commander. And in that moment, all the other rifles also turn to the commander. And just like that, power was in the hands of the working class. The majority realized we are the...
Remember, guys, how many socialists have we seen show up in the military? That was an excellent freeze frame. Possibly my best freeze frame ever. How many socialists have we seen showing up in the military? They're not all conservative, guys. Maybe some. But if you think that they don't know that they have all sorts of people in the military who are not going to fire on the protesters, they're going to fire on the generals. They've already planned this. They know what's up.
The authority now. And they took care of that commander, by the way, but that was the beginning. That was the beginning of that revolution. That's a moment like that can happen again. It has happened. It will continue to happen. When you have a real uprising, whatever modern variant of that happens in the future, it's not, guns are not enough. The state is not enough to hold down a war.
I'm pretty sure Logan Lansing just posted a queer poster from these people. Well, these people don't believe in queer Marxism, so I would be surprised if it was from these people, but I'll take a look, Tayton, because, yeah, Logan Lansing has never listened to these people. Logan Lansing has no idea who the fuck these people are because he refuses to watch video on them because he is just so above watching primary source documentation. Fuck that guy.
Working class that is conscious of its power. That's the question. Now, I've heard comrades ask, what could it look like? And again, we don't know exactly how these things are going to play out.
I don't
think it's hard to picture.
Hang on.
We saw the drama and...
Not these people, Tate. And I know why you think they're these people because it says communist revolution, but not these people. I know what their branding looks like. It's not them.
Congress this week where after a lot of intense debate, there's a formal announcement that says the office of the Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant. Well, with a victorious transfer of power, I think we can make a similar announcement when it comes out. It'll be a shorter one. The United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant. And I personally, this is just on a detail, but I think it would be nice if we could get a hold of the national emergency system that they tested on Wednesday and make sure that we blast out on every cell phone, every TV, every radio in the whole country and make sure everyone knows.
Hang on, I want to listen to that one more time because I missed something because I was tweeting. Sorry. So they're saying, he's flat out saying the United States House of Representatives is vacant. This is the first time I've heard them say they want to destroy that because they're all about representative democracy, but okay, fine.
Victorious transfer of power. I think we can make a similar announcement when it comes out. It'll be a shorter one. The United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
When I say they're talking about overthrowing the government, what I mean is they're talking about overthrowing the government. The Civil War is not red versus blue. The Civil War is radical revolutionary socialist versus the government.
And I personally, this is just on a detail, but I think it would be nice if we could get a hold of the national emergency system that they tested on Wednesday and make sure that we blast out on every cell phone, every TV, every radio in the whole country and make sure everyone knows this is the end of capitalism right here. We're going to have a lot of red flags too. Big ones. I'm mostly excited for the one that's going to go on top of the One World Trade Center. But I think the White House is going to look pretty epic as well, a red flag over the White House.
Why did they blur that out? What just happened? What just happened? Why did they blur that out? Yeah, a giant red flag over the White House. Everyone owes me $2 that hasn't paid up yet. I was right. And fuck Tim Pool too. I'm sorry. Tim, how has no one else reported on this? They're talking about overthrowing
right, but more
the fucking
importantly,
government.
what is a workers' government going to do?
Workers' government.
Specifically, a socialist transformation of society would begin by expropriating what Marx called the commanding heights of the economy. We could look at it like the Fortune 500 companies. That's 2/3 of the US gross domestic product in the hands of those 500 companies. That's $14.2 trillion in revenue, $20.4 trillion in total market value. But we're talking about all the major banks.
Can you please super chat? Okay. I'm not actually asking that people do this, but if people wanted to super chat him and tell people to come and watch the stream Carlin did today, where they had socialists talking about overthrowing the federal government, that'd be cool. If someone wants to tell Tim Pool via super chat, the Civil War is not red versus blue, it's radical revolutionary socialist versus the government, and we have them on video saying this, that'd be pretty rad. No, I can't do, like, they have to fucking ask me, and I don't know if I want to.
The largest industrial monopolies, the utility companies, major retail, warehousing, distribution, Walmart, Amazon, big tech.
That would be funny as hell. There were like dozens of Carlin was right super chat. That would be fucking hilarious. Anyway, guys, let's wrap up.
All the private university systems, the Yale comrades will be very happy to see that system come into the hands of the worker state. The entire medical sector, all insurance, hospital systems, pharmaceutical companies, and crucially, the entire energy sector. Isn't it crazy that the grid, something as fundamental as how we power the country, is in the hands of private companies? We'll put an end to that. By the way, most of these monopolies are extremely well organized within the company. You have a high degree of planning down to every detail, state-of-the-art systems tracking.
All right, guys, I got to hit the little socialist room real quick. I'm going to put this on full view. Take good notes. Let me know if I miss anything. I'm going to be back in like a minute. I'm a minute tops. I'll be very, very quick. I want to see the end of this.
Inventory by the second. You have the logistics are very well planned. It's just that you have all this wasteful competition between one monopoly and another within the market, each one jealously guarding its own research and development, forcing efforts to be duplicated over and over again. A democratically planned economy will consolidate this and will be sure to establish establish the most efficient and advanced methods available very swiftly. We could have a decree of workers' control issued immediately to gather assemblies of workers in all of the nationalized industries and have them elect their representatives who would also be revocable by those bodies that elected them to make the day-to-day decisions together with other representatives of the working class. The way they did it in the Soviet Union, the way we would propose doing it, is to have the democratically elected boards in every industry that are made up in thirds. 1/3 by the workers that are in that particular workplace or in that industry, another third by the trade unions, representatives of the trade unions of the broader industry, and another third that would be representatives of an
All right, I'm
overall
back.
national plan, basically elected representatives of the workers' state. That way, every planning unit is looking at things from a broad perspective. It's not that the workers become the capitalists and start competing against each other. Everything is now planned in a rational way, according to the needs of the economy. And if you consider the wealth at our disposal once the productive forces are freed, in this country especially, but on a global scale, for one, we could end the housing crisis by the end of the week. There are 16 million vacant homes in this country. So we could not only get a roof over the nearly 600,000 people who are living on the streets, we could also provide a much needed upgrade for millions of families who've been forced to live in bad homes in unhealthy conditions, some of them for generations, by the way. When people talk about the question of reparations, I think this is the best way to envision genuine reparations for centuries of slavery, of colonialism, of exploitation and oppression, expropriating the capitalists and planning the economy and building socialism. After the end of capitalism, I think we will have a proper reconstruction. Finally establish real social equality, not on paper, but in real life. Rents could be immediately fixed to no more than 10% of income. In addition to expropriating the vacant properties of the large-scale landlords, you could expropriate the assets of the largest corporate landlords. You have institutional investors that own massive, I think a quarter of the housing in the entire country, millions and millions of rental units. You could have free universal healthcare, as a matter of fact, access to free lifelong education. These would be basic conquests that we would be able to establish in short order. Free full-time childcare facilities, after-school programs. Abolish this state of things where it's such a difficult thing to raise the next generation. Affordable public laundry services, restaurants that can serve good food, help people be healthy. In terms of employment, we would do away with the situation where people are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Everybody could be given a quality job with a shorter work week. I don't see why we have to work more than 20 hours. We can share out the work.
They really do believe that when they eliminate the profit motive, that and when you go to your assigned job under socialism to, to produce the things that the state has said that you should produce or you don't eat, they really think that if they get rid of all the excess, then people are only going to have to work a couple hours a week and they're going to make more money and everything's going to be great. And the rest of the time they have to be artists or to give back to the community or do whatever. Because we don't really need 37 different types of deodorant to choose from. If we're only producing one type of deodorant, that's enough. Everyone gets a deodorant. Everyone gets what they need. And because we aren't expending all of these excess resources producing 37 different types of deodorant, then all the work hours come down and it's going to be much easier. That's what they think.
Work with the available workforce in each industry. We fight for a minimum wage of an annual income of $65,000, which is roughly the median income today. That's just the minimum. But even the question of wages would be in flux. Your disposable income is a question that would be transformed once so much of your paycheck isn't going to rent, to student loans, health insurance, and so on. And with a shorter
all
week,
that's gonna
with
be
those
provided.
basic needs met, at the end of this thing that weighs down on millions of people, this constant desperate feeling of I'm just treading water, of financial stress, of trying to survive, when we release that, it's going to transform the conditions of the working class. People are going to find themselves with more breathing space. They're going to find themselves with more free time, more energy. And I think we're going to desperately need that, actually. We're going to need to harness that, because we're going to have our work cut out for us doing what the capitalists have failed to do in relation to the climate crisis.
Literally save the world.
We're going to have a complete overhaul of the energy grid, protecting all the jobs involved, all the workers' conditions, in addition to a monumental public works program of mitigation, of repair, of rebuilding, of disaster prevention, redesigning cities, public transportation, entirely new energy infrastructure. That's exactly what's required. That's objectively what's required by the climate crisis, and it's objectively impossible for the market to carry it out. This is to say nothing about the international repercussions. I mean, when we have a revolution in this country, the impact it's going to have on the rest of the world is practically unimaginable. But a revolution, a successful socialist revolution in any country, would electrify the global political landscape. I mean, just like that, millions and millions of workers, billions of people are going to be inspired, but you're going to see people are ready to take action. You're going to see communist parties, mass parties rising up, springing up seemingly out of nowhere all over the world in response to an event like that. And if we do our jobs right, we should have the forces ready to greet such an event, ready to take a massive influx into the ranks of the organized communist movement, ready to deploy those communist cells to the urgent work of agitation, of preparation to carry out a revolution here. The result of rationally planning, democratically planning the economy on a world scale wouldn't just be that life gets better, that we have better conditions, a shorter work week. It would mean a state of superabundance. It would mean we no longer need a state at a certain point in the sense of an armed force, which, by the way, would also free up. The world is spending over $2 trillion every year in armaments. Actually, a huge part of that, 42% of that, is the US military budget alone. That's going to come in handy when we can free up that amount of wasted resources. At the end of it, we would arrive at a point, the result of planning the economy in this direction would be arriving at communism, arriving once again at this place where humanity is free, is equal as a species. There's no state.
Communism means humanity is free. Humanity is equal as a species. For every conservative who is confused about the Queers for Palestine posters, because none of their influencers will explain this to them. The reason they're saying Queers for Palestine is because they believe that no one is free under capitalism. And they're not going to stop their struggle, their revolution, doing the work until they abolish capitalism, because they believe that no one is free until capitalism is abolished. And that's the same if you're a Palestinian. It's the same if you're queer. So whether or not there are rules in the Middle East about being thrown off buildings and that sort of thing, that doesn't matter to them. Because their perspective is no one is free in a world where capitalism exists. Let's listen again.
Arriving at communism, arriving once again at this place where humanity is free, is equal as a species. There's no state, no ruling class. I think under these kinds of conditions, on living under a situation of superabundance, I don't think it would take long for all traces of religion, of prejudice, and of violence to also dissipate, to wither away with it.
Again.
Now, I know that painting a picture of another world like this when we're sitting here in Manhattan can test the imagination of some people. I know that some...
Maybe it's like, maybe this is split up like the Bolsheviks are the ones that are really trying to abolish all religion, whereas like the queer Marxists, the ones that we see trying to co-opt the religion, are different. Because, I mean, these people apparently don't get along with the queer Marxists. And we hear the queer Marxists talking about co-opting. They're talking about using religion as a political organizing force. But that's not the same as these people. So maybe that's like one of the differences in perspectives, because I've never heard that type of talk when we're looking at the queer Marxists and like the radical revolutionary socialists that speak at like the socialism conference. But this is a different group of people. Different philosophy. Amber Christie, thank you for the $2 Rumble rant. Carlin, I know you are correct when they say they're going to kill us, but have they actually admitted that? I mean, they haven't flat out said we're going to execute everyone who disagrees with us, but I think we can look at history and understand that. Yes, Mary, this is the same one. We're just wrapping up, though, but you missed a really eventful stream.
People, it may bring out a bit of skepticism. The point of Marxist theory is not to make a vivid fictional representation in our head of what the future is going to look like. Although I do think that part of being a communist is looking around at this world and being able to see that potential that's there, to see the next world that sometimes peeks through.
I think they'd probably try to figure out a way to work together. They have more in common than they don't. I think they'd probably try to work together. These people don't believe that China's communist. These people believe that China is too close to capitalism. So they don't believe that China's communist.
Because we're talking about the evolution from this species to the next species in history, right? One comes out of the other. We're talking about, we recognize the one that's waiting to come out. And what is the point of Marxist theory is to help equip the mind of a communist to carry this out, to produce this transformation, that task of changing the world. Because this transformation that we're talking about, it's not just something we're inventing out of thin air. It's simply pointing out there is productive potential. Objectively, that potential exists. It already exists. And if it could be unleashed, what would the possibilities be? They would be incredible. Once they're no longer constrained by the absurd, narrow limits of private property, private ownership, of the profit motive, of everything organizing just to make a profit for a tiny minority. This is the evolutionary thread that we're talking about in human history, saying, look, we can see what this next step is going to be. And this dystopian hellscape is not the end of history. This is just the end of our prehistory. Being a communist and adopting a Marxist outlook means being able to see that long view of history. It means resisting the outlook and the ideological pressure of the ruling class that has come to its end, resisting the pessimism, the demoralization, the doom, and looking at capitalism, looking around, especially once we get outside here in Manhattan, this nerve center of imperialism, those imposing skyscrapers of finance capital, and realizing capitalism is not natural. Capitalism is not sacred or eternal. It's not omnipotent, and it won't last forever. Comrades, until we reach the day where we can see that task through to the end, it's our duty to gather together the grave diggers of this system and prepare for revolution.
Look at that room. Look at that room. Those are people who sat there all weekend for Marxist school learning about Marxism. Is that like 100, 150 people in that room? Maybe not the biggest event in the world, but they do these events all the time. They have meetups all the time. Lots of drab colors, right? Except for red. You see a pop of red here and there. You see some red, but mostly drab colors, like I told you. That's really the end of it, guys. So how's everyone feeling now that we know exactly how they're planning to organize the Marxist revolution? It is amazing what happens when you actually stop fucking around on Twitter and sit down and listen to actual socialist talk. And then they say, here's exactly how we're going to elicit the revolution. We're going to use workplaces to organize. We're going to use unions to organize. We are using this political party to organize. And we're preparing, man. We're getting all of our ducks in a row. We're getting all our chess pieces in place. And you ain't even going to know what's coming. And then we're going to take over the federal fucking government and raise a red flag above the White House. Does everyone get it? Does everyone get why I have a tone? All these goddamn conservative influencers who are like 1776, none of them will talk about this. There are literally people in this country right now talking about using workplaces to organize that are massively organized all over the country that just formed a political party that the conservatives are using to own the libs. And Jordan Peterson's like, ha ha ha, doesn't the mainstream media know that communism always fails? Ha ha ha, why aren't they covering this? Meanwhile, no one's talking about the fact that they have 30 organized centers across the country in all types of areas, not just blue areas. They're actively talking about taking over workplaces, taking over unions. Well, they already own the unions, so they're not even taking that over, but they're using them to organize and coordinate and get new people into their ranks with the goal of taking over the federal fucking government and raising a red communist flag over the White House. And we just saw that laid out on video, and I didn't make any of that up. And people want to know why I have a tone when I have to deal with little pussy bitches like Jesse Kelly, who block people just for mentioning my name, or James Lindsay, who refuses to use the word capitalism, or any of these people who refuse to look at primary source evidence because that bitch has a stupid haircut and a mean tone. I have been screaming about this for years, for literally years, and now it's all coming to a head. And again, I am the only goddamn person talking about it, and no one else will listen. So here's what we need to do. This can't just be me screaming about this, guys. We're going to start coordinating all of you guys together. The people who sit here and watch this stuff with me, the people who know what's going on, the people who are scared as hell about this, you guys need to force people to talk about it. And we're going to coordinate this. We're going to do reply guy shit on Twitter because Twitter is all these fucking people care about. I will keep doing this stuff and finding news stories and finding things to share and making videos and explaining things. But I need your guys' help in making sure we are annoying the ever-loving F out of these feckless fucking influencers until they come to heel and they start talking about this. I need everyone to be sharing everything. I need everyone to be haranguing people. This can't just be me screaming on the internet. We all have to do this together, okay? And right now, if people want to go over to Tim Pool's chat and send in some Carlin is right super chats, I'm not going to tell you no, because I am done being nice with these people that refuse to talk about this. If we need to create this little underground cult thing, like literally underground cult thing, to talk about this when no one else is, then I will fucking coordinate that shit. We're already doing propaganda in my supporter Discord anyway. But I need people to show up. I need people to show up. So I'm going to be sending out a post on my Substack. I'm going to send out a post on my Substack later tonight, carlin.substack.com. And that's going to have information that will tell you guys where to go and how to get involved. Okay? And I need everyone to show up and to start doing shit. Because if you guys don't start pressuring these people into actually saying something, they're never going to do it. The radical revolutionary socialists are not the people we're going after right now. We just want to know what they have to say. The people we're going after are the feckless fucking conservative influencers who are continuing to lie to their audiences. And if we can use their names to get in front of their audiences to show them video of radical revolutionary socialists literally talking about overthrowing the federal government and their organized plan to do so, then that's what we need to do. And I don't give a fuck what their feelings are. Facts don't care about your feelings, conservatives. You've sat on your asses long enough. I'm sick of this shit. I don't want to live in a Marxist utopia. And I don't think any of you do either. So I'm going to send out a post on the Substack. Bing. Link in the description. And I will tell you how to get involved. Please show up. All right, that's all I have. Go watch Tim Pool. I'm not going to because I'm going to go cry into a corner. But I'll be back for happy hour tomorrow at 5 p.m. We'll watch more socialism and we'll have beer. Is everyone ready for beer? I'm ready for beer. All right, guys, that's all. Take care. We'll see you soon.